Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
The wind howled like knives across the rooftop, rattling the steel beams of the skyscraper. Neon light from the city below flickered against the storm-tossed figure of an old man, his hair and beard whipping wildly. Rays Cromwell raised a hand to shield his eyes. "Of all places, I chose the damned rooftop," he muttered. His long hair lashed across his face. He shoved it aside with irritation, robes snapping in the gale. "Magic solves many problems," he said to himself, "but not poor decisions." At the rooftop's center, a glowing ritual circle pulsed with pale light, carved with intricate glyphs. Within it knelt 5 bound captives, their muffled cries carrying faintly through the storm. Ray scowled. Enough noise. What could you possibly have to say? He traced a sigil in the air. Purple light shimmered from his fingertips, freeing one captive's voice. The man gasped desperately. "Dark Magus, spare me. I'll give you anything. Please, don't kill me." Ray stepped close, his shadow stretching long over the man. "And when that couple begged for their lives, what did you give them? Where are they now?" The prisoner froze. His lips parted, but no answer came. One by one, Ray's named the others' hidden sins: murder, deceit, and ruin. Their eyes widened as he unearthed their buried crimes. Finally, he halted at the last captive. "And you," Ray said with dry mockery, "a zealot who forced his diet on strangers. You're only here because I needed 5. The circle's glow intensified, symbols searing into brilliance. "You judge us," one captive spat suddenly. "But what about you, Dark Magus? How many have you slaughtered? You know better." Ray's doubled over, coughing blood onto the sigils. His laugh was ragged. "You're right. We all deserve death." "Not all, just you." The voice came from above. 5 figures in white robes descended, radiant with power. "The Grand Magus," one captive cried in relief. They were the Pinnacle, 9-star mages, nation breakers. To see all 5 assembled was terrifying, even for Rays. He smirked through the blood. "Inax, tell me, how does your wife bear knowing you've only one ball to play with?" Inax's face flushed scarlet with rage. "Rays," another thundered, golden hair blazing with energy. "A talent like yours, wasted on darkness." "Shut your mouth." Rays roared, dark energy boiling from his frame. "You dare preach? Each of you stole everything I loved. Especially you, Idor." The Grand Magus radiated their power in response. Idor, smiling, stepped forward. "Did you think we didn't know? You're dying already. 1 foot in the grave. We simply won't let the Dark Magus slip away. We'll kill you with our own hands." Rays laughed, a deep, guttural sound. "Idor, Gizin, Ibrin, Trubin, and you, One Ball. This is my final message." The circle flared violently. Pressure built. The captives screamed, until their skulls burst like ripe fruit. Rays fell with them, body collapsing lifeless into the gore. The Grand Magus lowered their guard slowly. "Is he truly dead?" Ibrin asked. "He must be," Gizin said. "That's his body." But Trubin's eyes narrowed. The blood and runes together formed a crude image, a massive hand raising its middle finger. He smirked. So that was his message. Idor conjured fire, flames crackling around his hand. "Confirmed. Rays Cromwell is dead. Our secrets die with him." They hurled the fireball down. The rooftop erupted in a sea of flame, devouring corpses and sigils alike. The Grand Magus rose into the sky, leaving only ashes behind. "I gambled everything," Rays thought in the void. "That book, I don't even know if it works. But I had to try. I was dying anyway." Smiling faces of his enemies swam before him. "They call me evil. But me? I'd only steal candy from a child, then give it back. Who's worse?" Memories tore through his mind, his childhood, his pain, his fall. Then, alien visions. Mountain peaks, grand temples, strangers in flowing robes wielding fists like weapons. "These aren't mine. Whose memories are these?" The pain crescendoed. His eyes snapped open. Memories surged like a flood through Ray's mind. Anguish, fury, shame, emotions he had buried so deep they poisoned him whenever they surfaced. When did my life become a curse? He wondered. Was it when my father sold me? night after night to those men? No, that wasn't what broke me. It was... The thought dissolved as alien visions intruded. Faces he did not know, places he had never walked, names he had never heard. His eyes flew open. Pain tore through him. His throat burned. His lungs screamed for air. And then he saw it, bulging eyes staring into his, fingers locked tight around his neck. Strangled, again facing death? No, not like this. Not now. I refuse. The assailant was draped in black, face hidden save for his cold eyes, like a faceless shadow. Rays clawed at his stomach, willing the man's insides to rupture. Nothing happened. His magic gone. Damn it. Did I use it all in the ritual? Is this really how I die? Darkness swarmed at the edges of his vision. Then, suddenly, the grip weakened. Ray's eyes darted to a shard of broken plate on the floor. Snatching it up, he drove it into the man's side. Once, twice, again and again, until his attacker slumped lifeless across him. Rays gasped, dragging in air, before shoving the body aside and staggering upright. His limbs trembled, but strength returned in shivers. The room around him was small and broken, rotting walls, warped floorboards, the smell of mildew and death. 3 corpses lay scattered, a man, a woman, and a boy. His new body's family. He looked at his hands, smooth, young, unscarred, responsive, alive. The spell worked. I've been reborn. Relief warred with dread. His first breath in this new life had nearly been his last. Still, youth was a gift. Better this than waking in the shell of some crippled old man. He tried to summon magic. Nothing. No spark, no rush of power. Only silence. Then he understood. This body has no mana core. For a moment, despair threatened to crush him. A 9-star mage, reset to nothing. Decades of mastery gone. But then, realization struck. A clean slate. A chance to craft the core from the ground up. No preordained attribute. No chains of fate. In his first life, he was bound to wind, forced later to claw his way into the forbidden dark. But never fully, wind always tainted it. Now he could start pure. His gaze fell on the dead shadow at his feet. A grin split his face. With blood from his palm, he scrawled sigils onto the warped floor, encircling himself. His voice was low, fevered. They say affinity is fate, that when a core is born, it reveals the truth of one soul. Fire from spice, wind from a fall, and dark. His laughter rang hollow and manic. For dark, only murder will do. The circle pulsed. Energy writhed, drawn to him, burrowing deep. Tiny orbs of force gathered at his heart, compressing, condensing. Time vanished. Then it was there, a core blacker than night, pulsing within him. Ray's eyes snapped open, gleaming with madness and triumph. The dark Magus has returned. The smirk on Ray's face was irrepressible. The prospect of beginning a new life with the dark attribute meant he could grow stronger as a dark mage, reaching heights previously unimaginable. A mystic energy, a blend of dark purples, blues, and blacks, began to swirl around his finger. It was thick, almost like paint, yet fluid as parts of it moved and disappeared. Rays extended his finger and pointed it at one of the plates on the table. "Dark pulse," he exclaimed. The energy dispersed and shot out like a small beam, hitting the plate and shattering it into pieces. Using just one spell made his head throb slightly. Dark magic was powerful and destructive, but consumed large amounts of mana compared to other attributes. Now that his body physically possessed a dark core, he would need to strengthen other attributes through magical items, crystals, herbs, and so on. It was possible for mages to learn every attribute, but depending on their core, some would be more difficult to master than others. For instance, Rays would find it challenging to increase his strength in the light attribute since it opposed his dark core, but it wasn't impossible. Rays tended to perceive things more like a game to simplify his understanding. If it was like a game, having a dark core granted a person 10 points in the darkness attribute to start with. This could be increased through certain techniques or items that enhanced that particular attribute. Due to his dark core, Ray's body could easily absorb items, adding to his points. Items related to the light attribute could still be absorbed, but he would need to absorb 10 times the amount of energy to see a single point increase. Other attributes would be easier to enhance, just not as easy as the dark attribute. Moreover, no other attribute could now surpass his dark core, as it was the foundation of his body. Eventually, the headache subsided, but it posed a serious problem. I'm only a 1-star mage right now, Ray's thought. My mana is limited. Since I only have the dark attribute, I can only use 1-star dark spells, which consume a lot of mana. It would be wise to learn another attribute quickly that doesn't consume much mana, perhaps wind. Mages were ranked based on the amount of mana in their cores, ranging from 1-star to 9-star mages. Ray's had been a 9-star mage in his past body. However, being a higher star mage didn't merely mean having more mana. It also enabled the performance of higher-level skills. But that wasn't everything in a battle, especially if one had a large arsenal of spells and different attributes. Many of Ray's early battles with mages were won because many underestimated the strength of dark magic. Rubbing his hands together, he couldn't contain his smile any longer and burst into laughter. Haha, but I won't be a 1-star mage for long. I wasn't entirely sure the spell would work, but just in case, I stored all my items, herbs, and crystals in a secret vault. All I need to do is access it, and I'll be back to being a 9-star mage in no time. Ray's was already envisioning his new life, a life where he wasn't a criminal, wasn't pursued by the Grand Mages, and could grow stronger even more rapidly than before. With all the experiments he had conducted and the experience he had gained over the years, he would excel faster than any other mage, be hailed as a genius in this new life, and when the time was right, exact his revenge. Suddenly, heavy knocks echoed at the front door, almost pounding it down. "Open up!" A deep voice bellowed from the other side. The voice sounded slightly strange to Ray's, as if it had a strong accent and a twang, but he could still understand the words clearly. "This is the Red Brigade. We received reports of screams coming from this house. If you don't open up, we will force this door down." Red Brigade, Ray's pondered, struggling to recall any group by that name. It sounded like a guild. He was in a new body and didn't know all the mage guilds' names, so he had to be cautious. If they discover I've been practicing dark magic, I'll be reported immediately. Ray's realized. Another reason he was hunted down was that dark magic was a prohibited attribute to learn. The banging on the door continued, and they could no longer wait. The door exploded open, crashing into the side of the house and breaking off its hinge. 5 men in red armor burst through the door. Ray's raised his hands, eyeing the men warily. Hopefully, they don't think I'm the killer. Although being the only one alive isn't a good sign. I wonder what level these mages are at. However, as the men came in, Ray's realized something was extremely strange. For one, they were wearing armor, not light clothing by any means. Their bodies were all well built as well. Strangely, some of them had swords by their side, as well as a host of other melee weapons. Could the Red Brigade be a magic weapons guild? If that's the case, this could become extremely difficult. The men who had come in forcefully soon spread around as they looked at the scene, and a lot of the emotion had left their bodies as they looked at the dead bodies around. "What happened here?" one of the men said. "Was it an assassination? Who would go after a family with no name?" Ray's could hear the others speaking, but he couldn't understand it. What do they mean by no name? He had a name. The person he had taken over had a name. It was Ray's. Wait a moment. Wait. Why can I only remember his first name? Does this mean I have no family name, but everyone has a family name? And these people, they are definitely my family. One of the younger members had entered through the front door, and he immediately covered his mouth as he looked at the bloody sight, but his eyes soon laid on Ray's. "Ray's," the young member called out. "What happened to your hair?" "My hair? What's wrong with my hair? Why would someone comment about my hair?" "Well, at least it looks like this person knows who I am. I don't think acting calm is good in this situation either." Seeing as someone knew him, it looked like this situation would be cleared up with a bit of acting. So Ray's fell to his knees and placed his hands on the top of his head while looking at the floor. "My family, they're all dead," Ray's said. "Ray's," the man said in a soft voice. "Sonny, the oldest member of the Red Brigade with a thick mustache on his mouth. The leader of the group shouted. The young man who had just entered looked up upon hearing his name. Take the boy out of here. Make sure he gets looked after. We will see what we can find here. For now, he should get some rest. Yes, sir, Sonny said, rushing over and went to pick up Ray's. But before he could, Ray stood up on his own 2 feet and shook his hand in the air, gesturing to the other there was no need. It's okay. I can walk myself, Ray said, as he followed Sonny out of the building. When he went outside, the bright light of the sun hit him, blinding him for a few moments, and soon he could see where he was. Wait a second, what is all this? Nothing on the ground, but just the dirt. Houses that are crudely built right next to each other. And there are no skyscrapers. Heck, I can't see any lights, and why are there so many mountains off in the distance? The people were all dressed strangely, with many carrying around weapons. They looked ordinary, no special crystals embedded into them. And there was one more thing that was noticeable just looking everywhere. There wasn't a single person using magic anywhere. Wait a second. Is this another world? A whole new realm unfolded before Ray's eyes. A tableau of sights he had never encountered. Market stalls brimming with fresh produce lined the streets, and townsfolk sauntered openly with weapons strapped to their sides. No building rose higher than 3 stories, each one nestled close to its neighbors. Not a single vehicle was in sight, a stark contrast to his world where vehicles soared through the sky. Instead, only wagons laden with goods, pushed or pulled by hand, populated the streets. People traded with coins and notes rather than relying on technology. It was evident that this was not the world Ray's had known. As he ambled down the street behind Sonny, he absorbed every detail of his surroundings while contemplating his predicament. Could this truly be another world? Or have I been transported to a remote land where society and technology are still primitive? But then, why is there no magic? It must be another world. Ray's mused. The book promised that I would inhabit a new body, but it never specified where or how. I should have anticipated this from a book requiring dark magic. Nothing is ever as simple as it seems. Abruptly, Ray's halted in the middle of the street, his hand instinctively clasping his chest as a heavy realization sank in. My treasures, he lamented internally. If I am in another world, then everything I stored for my advancement as a mage is gone. Lost forever. How am I supposed to increase my power now? Memories flooded his mind. The arduous trials he had endured to collect those items. The mythical beasts he had battled, narrowly escaping with his life. All that effort now in vain. A tear threatened to escape as Sonny, sensing Ray's distress, turned and noted the somber expression on his face. Poor lad, he just lost his family. The reality must be sinking in, Sonny speculated. My items. Ray's fought back a sob as he forced himself to move forward. Just as he began to accept the loss of everything he had worked for, another thought struck him. Wait, the Grand Magus. They don't exist in this world. My entire purpose for being reborn was to exact revenge. If they aren't here, what is the meaning of my existence? Isn't Rebirth supposed to be a cheat code? Attending the Magic Academy, being hailed a prodigy at 5, defeating bullies who underestimate you, and proving your doubters wrong. His dream life crumbled before his eyes. Get back here, you little thief, bellowed a rotund, bald man with sweat pouring down his face as he pursued a small child, who Ray's guessed was about 5 years old. The child, clad in tattered clothes speckled with dirt and scabs, darted past Ray's, closely followed by the large man, who seemed to be gaining on the exhausted child. Ray's, tapping into his magic reserves, felt the core within him ignite as power spiraled around his finger. Dark pulse, he murmured. A beam of energy, paler than usual, shot from his finger. In the sunlight, it was almost invisible, but it struck the man's leg, causing him to stumble and fall face first into the dirt. He looked well-fed, while the child seemed starved. He could spare a few loaves of bread. Onlookers gathered around the fallen man, some chuckling, others offering assistance. Either way, the child had escaped, and no one had witnessed Ray's intervention. No one should have to endure hunger, Ray's thought, as he continued onward. Finally, they reached their destination, a grand edifice surrounded by a wall and flanked by two enormous red doors. Beyond the wall, the building loomed majestically, its roof adorned with ancient tiles and dragon carvings. Intricate patterns decorated the supporting pillars, a testament to craftsmanship long forgotten in Wraith's world. Guarding the entrance were two stone lions, regal and imposing, as if truly safeguarding the doors. Beside the stone pillars stood two men clad in red uniforms, like Sunny, each holding a spear and standing as rigid as statues. Above the entrance, a sign read Red Brigade Clan. The letters, patterns, and lines foreign to Raise were somehow comprehensible. This is not my world. And what is a clan? It's not a guild or a faction. What kind of world have I entered? If magic doesn't exist here, could I be revered as a god? Raise found himself in a guest room of the Red Brigade's complex, a term more fitting than building, given its sprawling nature with several structures scattered about in grand courtyards at either end. A constant flux of individuals, all donned in identical uniforms, traversed between the buildings. The fading sun signaled that many of the several hundred residents had already retreated to their slumber. Raise was tucked away in a corner room of a building set apart from the largest one he had encountered. The room was Spartan, equipped with just a single bed, a table, and an oil lamp to stave off the encroaching darkness. It's so dim in here. I could employ my magic to amplify my vision, but it would squander my mana. The struggles of a one-star mage resurface. It would be optimal to bolster my mana. Amplifying my dark attribute is futile without mana for spell casting. Raise estimated that he could currently muster a mere 5 spells in quick succession. Moreover, the recent demise of his newfound family loomed large. With no knowledge of the events, anyone could potentially be pursuing him. The Red Brigade clan seemed to be a sanctuary of sorts, possessing some influence in this realm. Venturing to the toilet, Raise made a startling discovery. The absence of a separating door revealed that the toilet was, in fact, a part of the single room. His dismay deepened upon discovering the toilet to be merely a hole in the ground. No, please, don't tell me the toilet is just a hole. Raise heaved a sigh of resignation. I endured the slums of Altarian, but this is pushing it. This revelation galvanized his resolve. If he had been transported to this world, there must be a way to return. Clutching the oil lamp, Raise examined his reflection in the room's mirror, the first glimpse of his new form. As suspected, his skin retained a youthful radiance, devoid of wrinkles, aligning his age with late adolescence. However, his physique was alarmingly slender. His former self was also lean, but compared to the populace he observed on the streets, he appeared emaciated. His fingers grazed his hair which, although mostly straight, curled at the ends and was wildly disheveled. Strikingly, it was a stark white. My hair was also white in my previous body. I lacked the fortitude for 5-star magic and underwent a forbidden procedure. It succeeded, albeit at the cost of a gradual decline in health and the bleaching of my hair. Raise recalled Sunny's initial reaction upon seeing him. Did the original occupant of this body not have white hair? Did my arrival instigate this transformation? A knock interrupted his musings, followed by the entrance of Sunny. Apologies for the delay, Raise, Sunny expressed. I understand your anxiety and curiosity about the current circumstances. We are eager to learn any details you can provide that might shed light on this situation. It was evident that they did not perceive him as a suspect, despite being the sole survivor. Raise seized this opportunity to partially disclose his predicament. He recounted his awakening amidst a life-threatening confrontation with an assailant, ultimately culminating in a fatal act of self-defense. Given the ubiquity of armed civilians, he doubted that this act would be deemed egregious, particularly under the circumstances. However, Raise then confessed his total amnesia, encompassing not only the world and his location, but also his age. This admission would serve as a buffer for any future unconventional behavior. I can't fathom your emotional turmoil, Sunny empathized. Do you have any recollection of me? Regrettably, Rays shook his head. The original body retained scant memories, more akin to vague sensations than concrete recollections. Got it, just a sec. Sonny walked out of the room, carefully closing the door behind him. It wasn't long before he returned, this time with a teenage girl in tow. She had unruly black hair, fairly thick, that cascaded past her shoulders. Her outfit mirrored that of Ray's, a plain gray shirt and trousers, but her eyes, shadowed underneath, hinted at a world of fatigue. As soon as Ray's laid eyes on her, a torrent of emotions flooded over him, and a smile involuntarily spread across his face. Thank heavens, Sonny breathed a sigh of relief. It seems you do remember your sister, Safa. Wait, my sister? Did he just say my sister? Suddenly, the pieces started to fall into place, just like when he had seen his parents. Memories, long forgotten, resurfaced, linking him to this girl. She was hiding in the cupboards during the commotion. When we searched the house, we found her trembling inside. The fact that you both made it out alive is nothing short of a miracle, Sonny elucidated. I'll leave you two to reconnect. With that, Sonny exited the room once more. Safa, looking up at her brother, offered a timid smile. She appeared to be around the same age as Ray's, but he recalled that she was actually a couple of years younger. Almost immediately, she dashed over to Ray's and clung to his arm, her body leaning against his. Ray's heart began to race, and images started to flood his mind. Don't touch me, he bellowed, violently shaking off her grasp and stepping back. Safa was taken aback. Her eyes locked onto Ray's for a few moments before welling up with tears. She quickly retreated behind a chair in the room, almost collapsing onto the floor. Ray's was still panting heavily, his heart pounding. Witnessing her reaction, a pang of guilt pierced his chest. This wretched body, it's still reacting to her, and my emotions are a complete mess. Approaching Safa, who was clearly still terrified, Ray's struggled to find the right words to mend the situation. I apologize, he stammered. Something's messed up in my head. I've kind of lost it and can't stand being touched. Do you get it? Safa, although still somewhat apprehensive, nodded her head slowly. Great, just great. She's lost her entire family, and the only one left, her brother, is now a lunatic who yells at her for simply touching him. This can't be easy for her either. Gradually, Safa regained her composure and stood up. They both stood there, awkwardly staring at each other. You in a wardrobe, right? Rays inquired. Safa nodded, but remained silent. Rays began to suspect that his sister might be mute. However, as certain memories resurfaced, he realized that she indeed was. Wait, if she was hiding in the wardrobe, did she witness what I did? Did she see me use magic? If she did and told people, there would be trouble. No, she must have seen nothing. Otherwise, she would have come out after the killer was neutralized or when the Red Brigade arrived. Sonny re-entered the room, clapping his hands together cheerfully. All right, I have some good news for you both. We've figured out where you'll be staying for now. I know it's a tough situation, but I'll explain everything in due course. For now, just follow me. They exited the building and strolled through the expansive courtyard of the base. Rays trailed behind Sonny, while Safa lingered at the back, her head bowed. Even though I won't be with you too, you'll be well taken care of. If you need anything or just want to talk, come visit me. Of course, I'll also check up on you both tomorrow to see how you're doing. Suddenly, Sonny halted mid-sentence and swiveled his head to the right. Charging towards them was another man, dressed identically to the one Rays had encountered earlier. He seemed to materialize out of thin air. In a single powerful stride, he closed the distance between them. Enhancement magic, Ray surmised. So magic does exist in this world. The mysterious man brandished a dagger, aiming directly for Rays. In his palm, dark energy swirled ominously. I didn't want to use it publicly because it would raise too many questions. But if my life is at stake. Red lightning fist. Sonny unleashed a punch, striking the man squarely in the chest and sending him hurtling through the air until he crashed into a building on the other side. Witnessing such raw power, Rays was dumbfounded, his mouth agape. What kind of magic was that? He blurted out. Magic, Sunny echoed, puzzled. That wasn't magic. It was martial arts. Rays had stumbled into a world where battles were waged, not just with weapons, but with fists as well. Rays and Safa found themselves residing in a place referred to as a temple by the locals and the Red Brigade. However, in Ray's homeland, it would have been labeled as an orphanage. Nestled partly up a mountain and a tad isolated from the town, the vast estate featured a large, tiled courtyard at the front and an exceptionally broad single building. Rays couldn't help but wonder about the cost of constructing something this grandiose on his home planet Altarian. Including the newcomers, the orphanage was now home to 12 children, all there for various reasons. Yet this was no ordinary orphanage. Acceptance was contingent upon the approval of Mr. Crone, the proprietor. A scar running from his chin through his face marked the visage of this bald, monk-like figure, always seen in robes. The children, on the other hand, made do with ill-fitting hand-me-downs, their ages ranging from as young as 5 to adult teenagers like Rays, who had recently discovered he was 15. Sunny had mentioned that a year older, and Rays would have been on the streets. Pondering this, Rays recalled a starving child and wondered why he was admitted to the temple, but the other was not. Rays was clueless about Mr. Crone's criteria. Sunny had mentioned there were requirements before leaving them in Mr. Crone's care, assuring them they were safe. Whether Sunny genuinely believed that or merely sought to instill confidence in them after a recent attack remained uncertain to Rays. Nonetheless, the previous night's events made Rays realize he needed to understand this world of martial arts better. On their first night, Mr. Crone assigned them a shared room with only one bed due to space constraints. Rays, unbothered, let Safa take the bed while he settled on the floor. Although Safa gestured that sharing the bed was fine, Rays quickly reminded her of his rule: no touching. Disappointed, she abandoned the idea. Ready to help around the temple the next morning, they stepped into the main hall and encountered a familiar face. "Ah, looks like the two of you managed to sleep in all right then." Sunny greeted them warmly. "I told you I would be back tomorrow to check up on you too. Now that I see you're both okay, I can head off." "Wait," Rays interjected. "Actually, I have a few things I want to ask you about." As Safa accompanied Mr. Crone to familiarize herself with her chores, Sunny and Rays retreated to the latter's study. A spacious room filled with well-maintained, high-quality books and furniture, superior to anything in Ray's own home. Settling into a single-seater chair, Sunny invited Rays to sit on the couch before asking, "So what is it that you want to talk about?" Struggling with memory gaps about this world and recent events, Rays sought clarification, particularly regarding martial arts. In his world, martial arts served merely as exercise, not a combat form. The notion of someone punching hard enough to break a wall belonged to the realm of fiction, not reality. "Oh, I see. I guess I should really treat you like you're an alien or something then." "More like from another world, but close enough," Rays mused. As Sunny elucidated everything he could, Rays' curiosity deepened, realizing the world was not just slightly different, but vastly so. Primarily, those proficient in martial arts, like Sunny, were known as Pagno warriors, akin to how magic practitioners were dubbed mages. However, a rationale existed for the distinction. Not everyone pursued martial arts to the extent Rays witnessed. Pagno warriors belonged to a unique community, separate from the military and empire, with their own societal norms. Although it was a standard rule for Pagno life members not to interfere with others and vice versa, Sunny explained it was more of an excuse. Pagno warriors enjoyed greater freedom, such as the right to kill. Kingdoms also often hired and compensated clans for their services. Now that you know about Pagno warriors, you need to know how they're split. The continent is considered one large piece, despite there being islands here and there, but it is divided between 3 large factions. You have the Dark faction, the Light faction, and the Demon faction. Sunny had marked the territory areas on the map, and it was fascinating to note that several different places and kingdoms resided in different regions. In each of these factions, there are several families, each with their unique styles of martial arts that they pass down to those loyal to the clan. For example, the Red Brigade, we are a clan that is part of the Dark faction. Sunny continued to explain a few details, such as, even though other clans were in the same faction, it didn't mean they were friendly. Clans mostly operated on an individual basis. The faction a clan belonged to mostly depended on the source of their martial arts energy. It wasn't as simple as the clans in the light faction being good, or those in the dark being bad, but rather the type of energy they used for their techniques. Reyes was incredibly interested in this particular part, considering his own powers. Being a mage, research was his forte, but Sunny seemed to be pressed for time. Of everything I tell you today, this might be the most important. As warriors, we cultivate our powers and perfect our techniques. And among us, we have masters so powerful they could obliterate an entire city with one fist. What Sunny described sounded like the same power as that of a 9-star mage. The stages of a Pagna fighter can be split into 3 parts. The initial stage, where fighters are ranked from level 1 to 6, the middle stage, where fighters are ranked from 7 to 9, and then the deity stage, from rank 10 to 12. If you ever become a Pagna warrior, you would truly learn how frightening each of these stages can be, and the titles that are given in each of these stages. Because the difference in power between ranks can be astronomical. For you, though, just understanding the 3 stages is enough. If you ever hear someone use the words deity stage, then you should never anger them. No one will be able to save you if you do. The tone of Sunny's voice and his entire demeanor changed when talking about the last part. It was interesting to note the mention that the current Reyes was not a Pagna warrior. A no-name, one with no family name, was one that wasn't related to a clan, nor were they related to any of the higher-ups in the kingdoms and empires. He could only imagine the strength he would have had if he had transmigrated into the body of a powerful Pagna warrior. So, what stage are you at? Reyes asked. Sunny smiled as he thumped his chest. I'm at the initial stage, a rank 2 Pagna warrior, Sunny declared. Reyes was quite impressed. If that was what a rank 2 warrior could do, he could only imagine in his head what a deity stage warrior could do. Thinking about that, something clicked in his head. Wait, the ones that attacked us, were they Pagna warriors as well? Sunny nodded. Then, if that's the case, why would Pagna warriors target a no-name family like ours? And even go to the point where they would target us again last night? From what Reyes had learned, members of Pagna typically refrained from meddling in human affairs. It was only the high-ranking officials or those particularly irked who would intervene. Hence, the recent attack baffled Reyes. I honestly don't know, Sunny replied, releasing a deep sigh. There's a lot happening right now that we don't understand. Even though the Red Brigade controls this area, it's challenging to monitor everything. Look, I know you want answers, but don't even think about seeking revenge. An ordinary person like you wouldn't stand a chance against a rank 1 Pagna warrior. Remember, you have a sister to take care of. Revenge, thought Reyes. Why would I care about a family I have no connection or memory of? The only people I want revenge on are the Grand Magus. Sunny was already halfway out the door, clearly pressed for time, so Reyes didn't press him with more questions. He could either ask next time they met or do his own research. Returning to Mr. Crone, Reyes was introduced to the other temple occupants. For his age, 3 boys and 1 girl. The first to catch Reyes saw was a dark-skinned, curly-haired boy with an incredibly goofy smile named Simeon. He seemed genuinely pleased to have new companions. Next were 2 boys, a shorter one with a handsome face and good build, reaching only to Reyes' shoulders, named Grin. He seemed annoyed to be summoned for no apparent reason. Beside him were twins, 1 male and 1 female, Bio and Gio. They were identical, except for their hair length. They politely introduced themselves, but seemed indifferent. The remaining children were much younger and greeted Safa and Reyes with broad smiles, waves, and bows. After the introductions, everyone resumed their tasks. Safa continued cleaning the ornaments and floors before sweeping outside. She was paired with the twins for cleaning, the main chore here. Reyes was assigned to help prepare food and was instructed to shadow Simeon. Entering the spacious kitchen, which resembled a canteen capable of serving hundreds, Simeon lifted a large basket of potatoes and slammed it onto the table. All right, just follow my lead, and I think you'll get the hang of it. Simeon grinned. They washed the potatoes, removed certain roots with a knife, peeled them, and tossed them into another basket. Simeon monitored Ray's closely and was somewhat surprised. Man, you peel those potatoes even better than me. How did you learn to use a knife so well? Simeon inquired. I lived alone for a while and learned to cook for myself. I've been doing this for a long time, Ray's replied. A long time? Aren't you my age? Were you peeling potatoes since you were 3 or something? Simeon joked while continuing his work. Ray's had answered automatically and realized he might have revealed too much. The children were unaware of his backstory, but kids being kids, they would inevitably ask all sorts of questions. Currently, Ray's was supposed to have lived with his family, not alone. He needed to ensure his story remained consistent. You must have had it rough too, huh? Don't worry, everyone here has had a hard life. But don't stress too much. We're in a good place, Simeon reassured. Ray's recalled Sonny mentioning they were safe here, all thanks to Mr. Crone. Is it because of Mr. Crone? Is he a Pagno warrior too? Ray's asked, wanting to gauge his surroundings and potential threats. With his current strength, he might not even defeat a rank 1 warrior. Huh, Simeon chuckled. I guess you haven't heard. You did just arrive after all. He glanced around to ensure no one was eavesdropping. Rumors say that Mr. Crone used to teach at the Pagna Academy. The academy? There's a Pagna Academy. Ray's raised an eyebrow. Sonny had never mentioned it, but it made sense since Ray's wasn't initially a warrior. Simeon was so shocked he dropped a potato he was peeling. Before it hit the ground, he kicked it back up, catching it, although now it was covered in dirt. What rock have you been living under? How do you not know about the academy? Simeon asked. Ray's pointed to his head. I don't have many memories. Something happened to me before I came here. Ray's tried to pull a face that made it look like it was a difficult subject to talk about. That way he could avoid more questions. Could you explain the academy? The topic seemed to excite Simeon. He placed the potato down along with the knife as he swung his arms as he explained away. The Pagna Academy is the place for anyone aspiring to make a mark in this world, Simeon elaborated. There's one in each faction, including here in the Dark faction. It's a school funded by all the clans in the faction. It began as a way for the clans to nurture promising fighters, and its success ensured its continuation. Clan members send their children to the academy, but it's also open to those not affiliated with any clan, offering a stepping stone into the world of Pagna. Upon graduation, other clans would eagerly recruit you. Joining the academy isn't mandatory to become a Pagna, but for those like us without a clan or access to cultivation techniques and skills, it's the only path to becoming a warrior. Simeon's voice quivered with excitement, unable to contain his enthusiasm. The mention of the Pagna Academy reminded Ray's of the Mage Academy. Although he was told he lacked magical talent, he ultimately proved everyone wrong. He even secured a respected position within the Mage Academy, despite never being a student. Those memories are ones I don't wish to relive, Ray's reflected. However, not just anyone can join the academy. You must at least be able to cultivate your chi and demonstrate a rank 1 basic skill to a certain standard. Many unfamiliar terms were used, chi, basic skills, but Ray's doubted Simeon could adequately explain them. He found written explanations in books easier to comprehend. That's why we're fortunate to have Mr. Crone. He teaches us for an hour every day. Thanks to him, we all have a chance to become Pagna warriors. Ray's examined his hand as he clenched it into a fist. He had harmed many with his magic, but had he ever physically hurt someone? Memories of the assassin he killed flashed in his mind. He certainly had used his hands back then. There was no doubt about that. I guess he was the first. I wonder if this body is capable of performing these martial arts skills. I guess I'll find out today. The group had a pleasant time, sharing a meal, and then getting on with some chores like planting crops in the adjacent farm and assisting with various tasks here and there. While Mr. Crone did assign them a considerable amount of work, it never felt like strenuous labor because he was mindful not to overexert anyone, and rest was permitted if someone was fatigued. Interestingly, Ray's observed that nobody grumbled about the work. I wonder if it's because they don't want to upset Mr. Crone, or is it because life here is much better than being alone out there with no one to care for you? During meals, Ray's and Sappho were naturally seated together, although they didn't converse. However, Safi used hand signals to request some dishes from the table. Unconsciously, Reyes comprehended and passed her the requested dish. Mr. Crone excused himself from the table to attend to something, which made everyone feel more at ease. So she's mute, Gren exclaimed, snapping his fingers. I was wondering why she was so quiet. I thought she had some mental issues, but she's just mute. That's great for a wife, since she can't talk back. That's not cool, man, Simeon interjected, shooting a quick glance at Reyes to gauge his reaction to the comment about his relative. We all live here, so we're like family. Would you say that about your family? We are not family, Gren retorted immediately, almost as if offended by the suggestion. You have dark skin. I have light skin. Even the disabled girl could tell we're not family. Reyes continued eating, feeling a wave of unease, but it felt foreign, as if it wasn't his emotion but something else stirring within. He noticed Simeon's clenched fist, not surprising since Gren was known for being obnoxious and usually made such remarks when Mr. Crone was absent. The room quieted down when Mr. Crone returned. Once you finish eating, take a break to digest, then meet me in the courtyard for training, Mr. Crone instructed. All the children, even the youngest ones, brightened up at the announcement, some even raising their hands in excitement. I guess even the little ones are enthusiastic about learning martial arts. It reminded me of my own excitement as a child. Instead of a happy childhood memory, an image of a 5-year-old Reyes, bruised and weak with hair obscuring his eyes, flashed in his mind. Stay focused on the goal, he reminded himself. After a brief rest, everyone congregated in the expansive courtyard in front of the main building, which was large enough to have its own track and obstacle course. As we have newcomers today, I have a few words before we start, Mr. Crone announced, hands clasped behind his back, reminding Reyes of military mages he had encountered before. The world outside is dangerous, especially for you all. Although many of you wish to avoid the Pagna, there is always a risk they will infiltrate the general public. Therefore, everything I teach you is essential for maintaining a peaceful life out there. What you decide to do with these skills after you leave is your choice. Do you understand? Yes, sir, the children responded in chorus. Excellent. Gren, lead the warm-up, Mr. Crone commanded. Gren bowed before beginning the warm-up, jogging around the entire courtyard with the other children following suit. Reyes and his sister joined in at a comfortable pace. They continued to jog in a square pattern, round and round, until Reyes felt his feet dragging, his lips parched, and his chest ready to burst from the exertion. What is happening? Reyes wondered as an 8-year-old child sprinted past him, having already completed an entire lap around him. Everyone managed to overtake Reyes, including his sister. I know my old body wasn't athletic, but I'm in a teenager's body now. Shouldn't I be somewhat capable? Why am I trailing behind everyone? Why is this body so weak? A troubling thought crossed his mind. Was it because of the spell he had cast in the past? To strengthen his body to withstand 9-star magic, he had engaged in some forbidden practices, which turned his hair white. The current body also had white hair. Did that mean the spell's effects transferred to this body as well? At that moment, Reyes paused, his hands resting on his knees as he took a deep breath. Screw it, it's clear, this body is not suited for martial arts. Reyes thought, but it doesn't matter as long as I can still do magic, everything will be fine. Mr. Crone had been watching Reyes and his sister as the new arrivals. All right, Gren, continue on to the next steps. Reyes, Safa, come over to me. Gren continued the basic warm-up that the kids would proceed to do. They then moved on to bodyweight exercises such as push-ups, sit-ups, and squats. Seeing how hard they were working, Reyes was relieved that he wasn't going to be a part of that. Eventually, the two of you will be able to do the same as them, Mr. Crone said. But as it's your first day, you don't want to overexert yourselves to the point that you won't be able to exercise again. Both of you sit down, with your backs facing away from me. The two did as they were told and sat down. Soon after, they felt Mr. Crone place his hands on their backs. Both of you have never practiced martial arts before. What I am about to teach both of you will be the foundation of martial arts. It's what we call Qi. Qi is the internal energy inside your body. It comes from your dantian, an invisible force centered around your stomach. When we use our skills, from the steps we take to the air we breathe in, we're always using this power of qi. That's why it is important to strengthen the dantian. Think of this as the plate, whereas the qi is the food. What I'm going to teach both of you first is how to feel your qi. The energy from the world, the energy around you in the plants, and such, to fill in your dantian. These two things go hand in hand, and as you improve them both, it will increase your rank as a warrior, but that's all up to you in the future. It was quite amazing what the teacher was saying, because Reyes thought that this qi was quite similar to mana. The difference was, mana was energy from the world, and one skill level was determined by how much mana they could control. This was dependent on how strong one's magic core was around their heart. However, magic cores allowed one to control the different types of energy in the air, depending on how well groomed it was to certain affinities. As you know, we are in the Dark Faction, and what I'm going to teach you is the basic Dark Faction cultivation technique, the Dark Essence Absorption technique. Once you have learned this, you must cultivate and use this technique each day to grow your dantian, allowing you to use more qi in your techniques. With this, I give you a warning. Never go beyond your limits. If you absorb more than your body can handle, it can have detrimental effects on your mental state and morality if not practiced with caution. If either of you were to go mad, I would deal with you myself. Inwardly, Reyes couldn't stop smiling. What was this? Was it dark magic that he was learning? What they said about one learning dark magic was the same. Mad? Had he ever gone mad? No. He was always sane and always knew what he was doing. If the dark magic that was meant to make him go insane had no effect, then he would welcome this dark essence cultivation technique with open arms. What an interesting teacher, to threaten new pupils with death, who he's just met. If it's so dangerous, then why is he teaching it to us? This world is starting to get a little interesting. I will now begin. Mr. Crone instructed them to close their eyes and follow the process every step of the way. He first asked them to envision a realm of complete darkness, as if they were sitting in a shadowy cave or a forest with barely any light. Once the image was vivid in their minds, they were to inhale slowly, taking deep breaths through their nose and exhaling out of their mouth. They needed to eliminate all distractions, all of the noises surrounding them. Both of them are quite adept at following instructions. I can see that it hasn't taken them long to tune out even the sounds of the kids training in the background. They're truly only listening to my voice. Mr. Crone mused. If I didn't know better, I would have thought they had both done this before. It was a surprise to Crone, especially after witnessing how poorly Reyes had performed in the physical activities, but everyone had their strengths and weaknesses. The next part is the difficult part. In your mind, the darkness surrounding you. You need to visualize it as energy. Imagine absorbing the darkness in the form of energy inside you. When you breathe in through your nose, all the way down into your body. When you exhale, visualize expelling the negative energy from your body. This was partly why Mr. Crone was touching both of their backs. It was a challenging task to completely do on your own, but he could help their bodies sense the energy easier by trying to control the qi that everyone had in their body. Then, when the qi entered, he would focus on building it in the dantian and ensure it didn't overflow or break. He would continue doing this a few times for them until they could do it themselves. The cultivation technique, building one's qi, was the basis of all Pagna martial arts. Although the technique could only take you so far, and in the future when hitting bottlenecks, one would have to try and rely on absorbing items. Mr. Crone's eyebrow started to twitch slightly as he noticed something happening. When looking at Safa, everything was flowing smoothly. The energy gathering was substantial, and a solid base was building up in her stomach. The energy had already stabilized in her body. She was a true talent, although Mr. Crone wouldn't tell one directly, not at a young age, as words were very effective at stunting one's growth if it got to their head. Yet, the one that made his eyebrow twitch was Reyes. He could feel the energy flowing inside of him, but the impurities in his body weren't coming out. Not only that, but Mr. Crone could feel no qi entering his main dantian, located a little under one's belly button. I can tell that the energy is going inside him, but is his body absorbing it? If it is, where is it going exactly? A phenomenon was occurring right now, and it was something that had never happened in history before. It was perhaps something that even Reyes couldn't predict. As Crone suspected, Reyes was using the cultivation technique perfectly. This was because the idea of controlling the energy around him in such a way had many similarities to mana. When using this technique, though, the energy wasn't going to his core. Instead, it was going to his mana core, his heart. The dark essence he was absorbing was increasing his affinity with dark magic, increasing his dark attribute. This is where these techniques. Countless mages tried to research a number of different ways to increase their affinity with a type of magic. Due to dark magic lacking research, there were very few methods, meaning one would have to stick to more conventional methods, using beast crystals from powerful creatures and creating special elixirs from rare herbs. But this, it's almost simple meditation. With this, it was increasing Rey's power when using dark techniques, but it still didn't increase the amount of mana he could control. Both things would need to go hand in hand. So eventually, Reyes would hit a bottleneck. But if this was a world of magic, he would be a step ahead of everyone else. All right, you two, remember this feeling well, and we will continue to do this every day from now on. Mr. Crone said. When the two opened their eyes, they could see that the rest of the students had stopped their basic training and were now sitting in a meditating state, cultivating their powers as well. Safa, is it okay if I speak to your brother alone for a bit? If you want, you can join the others and practice what we were just doing, but only do what you can, Mr. Crone said. Usually, he wouldn't have done such a thing for a student cultivating for the first time, but Safa had perfect control. I wanted to speak to you on your own, Mr. Crone said. I'll be blunt when I say this. I don't think the dark essence cultivation technique is for you. Not for me. Not for me. What does he mean? This is perfect for me. I'm able to make my dark energy stronger just by meditating every day. I don't want you to lose heart, the teacher said, his eyes serious but kind. This doesn't mean you can't practice martial arts, but I might not be the one who can help you. What I suspect is that your body already has a large amount of light energy inside it. What? What? Reyes was extremely confused, but he allowed the teacher to share his theory. I'm not certain because I'm not a Pagna doctor, but occasionally we encounter individuals whose bodies contain a natural amount of dark energy or light energy. Because they are born this way, their bodies are usually very sick and weak. They have a lot of impurities due to the buildup from birth. Now, when we cultivate, we rid our bodies of these impurities. When you were cultivating just now, the energy was being absorbed, but no impurities were coming out from your body. So, my guess is the energy was being destroyed by your body that already has a lot of light energy inside it, whereas a normal body would be an empty vessel of sorts. Now Reyes understood where the teacher's theory was coming from, but the energy wasn't being destroyed, it was just being added to his mana core instead. What I suggest is for you to learn a different cultivation technique. There are those that take in more than just the energy of dark and light. However, I do not know of any other cultivation techniques than the one I just showed. Perhaps if you joined the academy or traveled elsewhere, you would be able to learn another cultivation technique. However, if you plan to stay in the Dark faction, I must warn you. The fighting techniques taught by the Dark clan use dark energy as its basis along with chi. Although you can use another energy, it might mean you might not get the best out of that technique. Dark energy is more destructive and spreads out wide, so the techniques taught suit that energy. Light energy is more straight and forward. One can use different energy to perform different fighting techniques, but the results might not be the best. I will continue to teach you fighting techniques, but I only know techniques belonging to the Dark faction, so in the future, if you do cultivate another energy, it might not be the best for you. Hearing all of the information, Reyes bowed down as he gave his thanks, because he was truly thankful to the teacher. Although this news might have been disappointing for many, for Reyes, he was over the moon with what he had just learned. That does make me wonder, though, if I did learn a different cultivation technique, would I also be able to control chi in my Dantian? Since the energy wouldn't be absorbed by my magic core, would I then be able to do martial arts and perform magic? Despite Ray's not having a core of chi to work with, he was still invited to the next part of the class training. The students were lined up in the courtyard with a few meters of space all around them. A good foundation for one's body is important, and you should build that by enforcing your body with chi, breaking down the muscles inside your body, allowing it to repair and create a stronger body, as well as a mix of physical activity as well. Does anyone know what the next important step is? Crone asked. Simeon and a few others had raised their hands, and Crone nodded toward him. Fighting techniques. Simeon threw out a fist hitting the air. It sounded relatively powerful as some wind was seen flowing around his arm from the impact. The number of techniques you have is important in order to be diverse when fighting against your opponent. But what I'm looking for is something that would enhance even that. Grin, then raised his hand straight up, and Crone selected him this time. Footwork, sir. Without footwork, the appropriate power cannot be put into one's techniques. Not only that, but the basics of any battle is to hit without being hit. A smile appeared on Crone's face, pleased with the answer. Correct. This is why I've been teaching all of you the basic two-step shift. It is the most simple of footwork techniques, but can be added to any technique to make it more powerful. Rays, watching everyone, was starting to figure it out. Grin was one of those that were a bit two-faced. The perfect student in front of the teacher, but then when his back was turned, he treated everyone else as if they were below him. Allow me to demonstrate. Crone took a deep breath through his nostrils, and then with the chi channeling inside him, he threw out a punch in the air. A loud bang went off right in front of their eyes. Although it only had hit the air, Ray's heart was starting to beat faster. That's it. That attack is the same power as Sunny had. The power to crush boulders with just one's fist. Now, I want you to watch carefully as I add the two-step shift, Crone said. He got in the same fighting stance again, but his legs were spread further apart. After that, he moved forward his front foot first. It landed on the ground perfectly, and then the back foot followed. There was a shift forward, and with the perfect timing, the fist was thrown out. Each of the movements used had chi utilized in them, including the two steps. When the arm was fully extended and the fist hit the air, a louder bang nearly 4 times as loud was heard. Wind currents were created moving furiously in the air. Now do you see? The two-step shift is a technique on its own, and the spiral punch is another. When using these moves, I used the same amount of chi, yet the power was amplified. Even if you don't have strong chi, if you're able to perfect your footwork and add it to your techniques, you will be able to create a powerful hit. Crone went on to demonstrate just the footwork a few times, and each of them repeated the steps over slowly, again and again. Crone would then walk around and give each person pointers. Once he was satisfied with the basic movements, one was able to speed up the two-step shift, but that was where people made mistakes, and he would correct them again. Finally, he would allow them to add on a punch at the end. It was just throwing out one's arm, not a special technique like he had demonstrated earlier. Everyone was doing relatively well, although it was hard for the students to evaluate each other. They weren't at the skill level to be able to tell if one's technique was off. For a while, he paused as he watched Safa. You are very good at taking instructions and copying, aren't you? Crone complimented. Safa turned her head, her cheeks turning a shade redder. Then it came to Ray's once more. He was copying the steps, and although it didn't seem sloppy, it felt like there was no energy in any of his movements. Not only that, but he was already tired and more exhausted than anyone else. This could be the result of him having little chi in his body, or his body being full of impurities. It's a shame because he seems to follow instructions well. Crone thought. Ray's managed to catch the look that the teacher had given him before moving on. I've seen that look before. I've seen it many times. Back then, they thought the same thing. They said I would never accomplish anything. I would never change anything. And then I became the most wanted man in the world. Ray's clenched his fists and continued the steps again and again until his body couldn't take it anymore. All right, Crone clapped. As usual, we will proceed with the final part of our exercise. Walking over to another part of the courtyard, there was what looked like a giant pillar. However, immediately Ray's could tell that it was no ordinary pillar. He could see that energy was being pulled from the air and was being absorbed by the pillar itself. That's interesting. I wonder what material that is made of. If there are things like this, then maybe there are ingredients similar to it on Altiran. If that's the case, I might even be able to create elixirs to improve this body's condition. Ray's thought. Crone gave the pillar a light tap, and the energy from his fist was almost absorbed. On the pillar itself, a number started to faintly appear as if it was engraved into the stone, and it had perfectly stopped at 50. I hope each of you remembers what your numbers were last time. Crone smiled. The students, one by one, prepared themselves as they used the two-step along with the punch to perform the technique, hitting the pillar. The number on the pillar would change. It was interesting as the pillar seemed to absorb the power of the hit, making no noise and then registering the hit. The first to try to hit the pillar had achieved a number of 12, and they were an 8-year-old child, but they had performed the technique well. It also went to show the difference between the hits since Crone had given it a light tap. How much power must have been in the tap? Ah, now I see. It's a measuring device. The students take their scores down and see if they have improved or not. Most of the students were jumping for joy as they saw their numbers higher than they were the time before. The numbers ranged from 10, going up to around 20 was the highest he had seen. Soon, it was Simeon's turn next. His hands were shaking, and he looked a bit nervous. He followed the steps and hit the machine with a loud bang, waiting for the number to appear. 14, Simeon said. That's the same as last time. Why have I been stuck on this number for so long? Next up with a large grin on his face was Gren. It was the polar opposite of Simeon, who was confident in each of his steps, and when he finally let out a fist hitting the pillar, the score appeared. 22. Yes, I finally did it. I finally surpassed the 20s. As annoying as a person might be, one had to admit when one was skillful and talented. All right, last up, Safa and Rays, the newcomers. Crone shouted. At the large Red Brigade base, Sonny had entered one of the large meeting rooms, where a single man wearing a red helmet with a large point on top of his head sat. He was sitting on a chair, looking away from Sonny. How are the children? The man asked. They're doing well. With Mr. Crone, we will not have to worry about them for now. The only ones that know his location are us. Sonny stated. That makes me feel a little at ease. The man replied. We have to protect them. Those two are the only ones that have ever survived an attack. I'm sure there will be those that will do anything they can to make sure they are dead. Of the two newcomers, Safa was the first to step forward. Although some time had passed, Rays was still feeling somewhat exhausted, and he wanted to give his all on the measuring device. That way, he could at least have an idea of how he compared to the others around him. As Safa walked up, Grin whispered to the twins by his side, Hey, it's the disabled girl's turn. I guess we're going to see the score of a non-fully functional human. The twins giggled as they heard this. The twins themselves hadn't gotten a bad score on the assessment, hitting around 18. It was quite clear that the three of them were the best out of the kids here, and they made their position quite clear. I can't believe these kids care so much about a simple matter. When they get out into the real world, they will learn that all of this is pointless, Ray's thought. Who's the best looking? Who's the strongest? None of that matters apart from trying to put food on the table and a roof over your head. Stepping up, Safa prepared herself and gave the nod to Crone when she was ready. She then executed the two-step shift. According to Ray's eyes, it looked perfect, at least compared to the teacher. Then, when throwing out the fist, a small spark of her inner energy could be felt coming out of her fist. It slammed into the pillar, and the number started to change. 22. Huh. Crone couldn't keep the smile off his face. I knew you were a special one. Rays peeked over at Gren, whose mouth looked as if it was ready to fall to the floor. How long had he been at the temple for? How hard had he worked to eventually achieve a score of 22? Then, someone who had just joined, with a few simple instructions, was able to get the same score as him. This was what one called true talent. Safa, pleased with herself, smiled as she went back to join the others in the lineup, and now it was Ray's turn. Come on, Rays, Simeon shouted at the top of his lungs. If that's what your little sister can do, then I expect big things from you. Come on, really? Rays thought, getting into position. Didn't you see how weak this body was? There was something innocent about the way Simeon cheered him on. He was generally a happy guy. For an orphan like him, it was rare. Ignoring all of that, Ray's focused. I rested enough. I want to do this properly, at least once, Ray's thought. When he was ready, Ray's took his time. He remembered carefully the movements that Crone had made, and then remembered what his sister had just displayed. His legs were moving as he imagined his body like theirs. The two-step shift was imitated, and throwing out his fist, it hit the pillar straight ahead, absorbing the energy. That was a good hit. He copied the movements exactly like his sister, Crone thought as he looked at the number that was starting to appear. 10. But his body is incredibly weak, and there was zero force of chi. Sometimes, I don't know what to think about him. He is perfect at practicing movements, imitating them well, a talent just as good as his sister, but a body that can't keep up with him. Reyes was breathing heavily, as if out of breath, even though he had only done 3 movements, 2 steps, and 1 punch. Focusing while doing such a thing, on top of all the exercise, had worn him out. I guess an attack that is half the strength of the others isn't so bad. What the? Grin whispered to the twins again. I thought his sister was the disabled one, but it might be this guy. What the heck is wrong with him? Man, if Mr. Crone wastes his time teaching this guy, then he's just going to waste our time. The day had come to an end, and Reyes felt like he had learned a lot about the world already that could improve his basis for his magic. It was a good start, and he was sure that he would be able to surpass the strength he had in his previous life. Exhausted, everyone had returned to their rooms for the night, and Reyes was in the room with his sister, who was lying on the bed with a smile that couldn't leave her face. I guess she's over the moon as well. It's good to see her smile like that after having lost her parents, Reyes thought, but soon shook his head, wondering what on earth he was thinking. With a clench of his fist, he struck his own thigh, frustration clouding his features. This damned body of mine is mixing my emotions, he muttered bitterly, his mind swirling with confusion. It reacts every time he sees his damned sister. Was he a Siscon or something? I wonder how long until these feelings will disappear. Old Reyes, you're dead. Stop lingering in this body and let me do what I wish. Before going to sleep, Reyes settled into the meditating position he had adopted earlier. He commenced the dark essence cultivation technique, trying to absorb the energy that surrounded him, directing it towards his dark core. This is good, but it's hard to know my progress, Reyes mused. There were a number of facilities on Alterian that allowed one to measure their mana capability and dark essence power. A sudden realization dawned on him. There was a way to measure his power in this world. Rising to his feet, he headed to the door and turned to his sister. Don't say a word to anyone about me leaving this place, Reyes instructed, then slapped his forehead, remembering she couldn't speak. I mean, just keep this a secret, okay? Safa nodded, watching Reyes leave the room, curiosity flitting across her face as she wondered what he would be doing at this late hour. Moving stealthily through the building, Reyes was grateful everyone else was still asleep. Eventually, the crisp night air greeted him as he stepped outside. Walking across the courtyard, he arrived at the spot where they had trained earlier that day, standing in front of the measuring pillar. This thing, I saw how it worked. It absorbed the energy from the blow, which means Reyes lifted his hand, dark aura swirling around it. It should be able to measure the strength of magic as well. Pointing his hand towards the target, Reyes intoned, "Dark Pulse." Energy shot out like a beam, a small pulse leaving his hand and striking the pillar. Just like the punches, the energy was absorbed, ensuring there was no sound, and numbers slowly started to appear on the pillar. I can tell the dark energy is already stronger than it was before due to the cultivation technique. Of course, as time goes on, its effects will lessen, but this is still great. 19. The score finally appeared on the pillar, bringing a smile to Rey's face. With this score, he was the 3rd strongest in terms of a single hit. Not only that, but Dark Pulse was a skill he could use at least 5 times and from a distance. If he got into a fight with one of the others, he was confident he would win. Satisfied with the results, Reyes resolved to continue using the cultivation technique and test it out on the pillar night after night, observing how much his skill would grow in terms of strength. Before he completely turned away, However, he stopped himself and looked at the pillar once again. Approaching it, he adopted the same stance as he had earlier in the day. The two-step shift, this should work right, Ray's thought. As before, he memorized the steps, feeling well-rested, and moved his feet at the right time. Then, as he prepared his punch, he gathered the dark aura around his hand. Dark pulse. Ray's fist hit the pillar, and simultaneously, a ripple of dark energy spiraled before being absorbed into the pillar. It felt like a solid hit with more power than before. The numbers began appearing on the pillar. 35. This. Speechless, Ray's pondered the implications. Crone's words suddenly made sense. That two-step shift, Crone said, it could be used to enhance other techniques, right? What if I use the two-step, and then, when throwing out a punch, I use the Dark Pulse skill? Would it create a larger effect? I have none of this chi energy, but the skill improved my regular punch, so in theory it should work, and it seemed like it did. At best, he thought the result would be his punch plus Dark Pulse, giving him a total score of 29. However, the footwork, added to the magic skill, must have improved the power of the magic attack as well, giving him a total of 35. I was right, mixing martial arts, even if I don't have chi, with my magic it works. Ray's felt as though he had taken his first step towards becoming a magic fighter. Exhausted, he wanted to try the hit again, but he could feel his body weakening, and the results wouldn't be as good as before. That's when he heard movement coming from the temple. He quickly needed to move away. Swiftly, he moved to the side of the temple entrance. One of the children had gotten up in the middle of the night. Deciding it was best to head back to his room, Ray's pondered his next steps. Early the next morning, Mr. Crone rose before the rest of the children. A dedicated trainer, he had a routine and didn't need as much sleep as the others. Upon reaching the courtyard, he headed towards the pillar. There were no numbers on the front of the pillar. They disappeared after some time, but Mr. Crone went to the back of the pillar. Here, the numbers would be recorded, and Mr. Crone was keeping note of who was showing the most improvement. That's when his eyebrows raised in surprise. What? When was this recorded? Who managed to get such a high score? The dawn of a new day arrived, and, much to Ray's astonishment, despite having slept on the unforgiving wooden floorboards, it was probably the most restful slumber he had experienced in a long while. There was an absence of inner turmoil, no anxiety that he would be pursued or assaulted at any given moment, and his dreams were filled with hopeful visions of what the future might hold. After rubbing the sleep from his eyes, he was pleasantly surprised to find Safa already awake, seated on the bed in a meditative pose. "A diligent one, I see," Ray's remarked. "You should maintain that you never know when the world can flip upside down, and who knows, those people might return to kill us." His sudden comment shattered Safa's focus, and her eyes began to well up slightly. Tears were already forming as she recalled her parents' demise. "Oh, come on," Ray's protested. "The death happened like a few days ago. Aren't you over it already?" Somewhat irritated, Ray's exited the room. He shut the door behind him, and as he did, he felt a heaviness envelop his chest once more. Death, losing loved ones, had become a part of his reality. The only thing one could do was concentrate on how to move forward from that. When you lose someone, you need to channel all your energy into the next thing, and for me, that's getting rid of them. The day commenced similarly to the previous one, with each of the children assigned chores around the place. However, this time, Ray's wasn't absent for the morning, so he had to assist in preparing breakfast. He and Simeon were reunited once again, and they were boiling some bones to make hot, fresh bone soup. "Hey, your sister did pretty amazing with those moves yesterday. She's really talented," Simeon said. "You know, you're going to have to work a bit harder to catch up to her. I'm sure when she's older, there will be a countless number of guys coming after her. You might need to fend them off." "Why would I need to do that?" Ray's queried. "She's better than me, so surely she could just beat them up herself. You know, it's just what family does," Simeon declared. "It's not about who's stronger. You're her big brother after all." "Well, we're not that close," Ray's responded as he continued stirring the soup. "So she will have to deal with that stuff on her own 2 feet. Hearing those words, for some reason, Simeon fell silent until a few words were eventually spoken out. You should be careful, Reyes. You never know what you've lost until it's gone. You should cherish your time with your family. It was the first time Reyes had seen Simeon so solemn. He was always upbeat with his words, which was why he chose to say nothing. But the truth was, Reyes wanted to reply. Trust me, I know that better than anyone. As they were ready to move on to the next step, suddenly Mr. Crone entered the room. Ah, I see you two are basically done. Reyes, is it okay if I speak with you for a while? Simeon, why don't you go help clean the hall with the others for the time being? When Reyes and I are back, we'll serve up breakfast for you all. Of course. Simeon agreed as he left, looking back briefly before exiting the room. That's a little strange. I wonder why Mr. Crone wants to speak to Reyes. Did he do something wrong? Regardless, Simeon continued and entered the main hall. It was large, filled with armaments on stands that needed dusting. There was also a giant statue at the back of one of the legendary figures that had formed the Dark Faction. Just from the face, one couldn't tell who it was because the statue depicted a hooded figure, but in all images and statues, the leader was portrayed in this manner. Then there was the large wooden floor. Each of the children had a separate area they were responsible for cleaning, and he could see Safa scrubbing the floors diligently. Reyes is sometimes hard to talk to. It would be good if I could get close to Safa and find out what's up, but she can't speak. For some reason, even though that's the case, I feel like she's more approachable. Heading over to Safa, Simeon was about to give it a try when he saw a bucket of water spill all over the area Safa had just cleaned. The water was dark, filled with dirt. "Oh crap!" Gren exclaimed. "I dropped the bucket all over the place. I'm sorry, after you had just finished cleaning it all." "Well, what can you do? You don't mind cleaning it all again, do you?" "I don't mind cleaning it for you, but if you want to, then you just have to ask me. You have to say the words, 'Can you clean it?'" Finishing his sentence, the two twins, Bio and Gio, couldn't help giggling. They knew she was unable to speak. Everyone knew by now. "Oh crap, why did Gren have to target her?" Simeon thought, rubbing his eyelids. Safa didn't say anything, of course, and decided to just continue cleaning up the mess that had just been made. It was easy work for her, and she knew what was happening. The two twins then looked at each other, as they suddenly had an idea. Picking up their buckets of dirty water from cleaning, the two of them started running straight at Safa. "Hey, Gio, stop pushing me." "No, you stop pushing me, Bio." Colliding into each other, the buckets flew into the air, landing on Safa and dousing her entirely. The other children turned their attention to Safa as she was drenched in the filthy water. They recognized what was transpiring. They had witnessed it before. The three had designated Safa as their target. Escorting Mr. Crone, the pair eventually made their way into his study. It was Ray's second visit to the room, but rather than occupying the sofa, he stood before the desk while Mr. Crone settled into his chair. "I've been pondering the situation from yesterday and my inability to assist you. After some reflection, I arrived at a decision," Mr. Crone announced as he retrieved a small box from behind him and positioned it on the table. "You possess talent, Reyes, and it would be inhumane to thrust you into the world without the means to defend yourself." Mr. Crone lifted the lid of the box, unveiling a red, petite sphere. "What you see here is an Essence Foundation pill. Once ingested, it will provide you with the equivalent amount of chi as a decade of cultivation. Given your constitution, it may not yield the same results, but it could be the catalyst needed for your body to establish its foundation." Reyes found himself unable to look away from the pill, but it wasn't Mr. Crone's words that captivated him. It was the energy radiating from the pill itself. Having the ability to manipulate mana in the air, Reyes was particularly sensitive to energy. This pill, it shares the same energy as an energy crystal from a beast of another world. Could I potentially utilize this to return to Alterian, to revisit my world? Energy swirled from the pill before him, a phenomenon Reyes was intimately familiar with. It was the same energy emanating from mythical creatures in his world, or more specifically, from the crystals they would relinquish upon their demise. Reyes hailed from a planet called Alterian, a world devoid of such mythical beasts. Yet, mages, through their magic, strength, and rigorous testing, had achieved a breakthrough. The ability to create portals to other worlds, or perhaps other planets. The distinction remained unclear. On these foreign lands, mythical creatures, animals of immense power capable of harnessing strength akin to mages, roamed freely. Upon their death, the crystals were uncovered. These crystals were a monumental breakthrough, empowering mages to craft items that enhanced their abilities, facilitated physical growth to ascend to the next star stage, and even opened portals themselves. This era was hailed as the golden period of magic, and to this day, portals were continually opened to hunt beasts for stronger crystals. Despite exploring numerous planets and locations, there remained no sign of other intelligent life, at least to Ray's knowledge. A high-star mage, equipped with the knowledge of magic circle formations, can utilize their own mana to open a portal. As a one-star mage, my mana is insufficient. However, instead of using my own mana, I can harness the power of a crystal, or in this instance, this pill. Human life, in any other form, had yet to be discovered through the open portals. The world Ray's currently inhabited was beyond imagination, yet it existed. Thus, there was a glimmer of hope that a portal could lead him back to Altarian. It's unlikely that I will succeed on my first attempt. Nevertheless, even if I am transported to another location, I can hunt beasts, gather more crystals to augment my body's strength, and progress to the next star stage. This pill is exceedingly rare, Rays, Crone continued. For individuals like us, acquiring something of this nature could take a lifetime. For intermediate and deity stage Pagno warriors, this might be trivial, but we are not them. It is imperative that you do not inform the other students of my involvement. Ideally, consume this discreetly at night. It will take a few hours for your body to assimilate all the energy. Crone winked. Rays was genuinely perplexed by Crone's generosity. It concerned him that there might be an ulterior motive. However, for the time being, he decided not to dwell on it, as he had no intention of using the pill as Crone had advised. With that, their meeting concluded, and they rejoined the others for breakfast. As they exited the room and entered the main hall, they noticed Sapphi's soaked, water dripping from her body. "What happened here?" Crone inquired. "It was us, sir," Gio confessed, bowing down. "My brother and I were careless while playing and made a mistake. We will clean it up immediately." "It's okay," Crone reassured. "Sapphire, clean yourself up, change your clothes, and then join us for breakfast. The rest of you, don't worry about this. I will handle it." The group complied, and everyone prepared for breakfast, with Grin, Gio, and Bio sporting broad smiles. Breakfast was uneventful. Sappha joined later, and everyone enjoyed their meal. A brief respite followed before they resumed their chores. Since Simeon had praised Ray's culinary skills, they continued to work together in the kitchen, preparing both lunch and dinner. While busily chopping vegetables, Simeon could no longer contain himself. "Hey man, I'm not sure if your sister planned to tell you, but what happened to her this morning wasn't an accident," Simeon revealed. "You mean her being soaked with water?" Rays asked. "Yes, man. Look, I've witnessed it before. Those guys resent anyone talented encroaching on their territory. They relish being Crone's star pupils and are easily envious. If you outshine them, they will attempt to knock you down. Why do you think my scores are always so low during practice?" "Because you suck," Rays retorted instantly. Simeon felt as if an arrow had pierced his heart, but he tried to dismiss it because, in all honesty, there was some truth to it. He was merely attempting to salvage his pride. "Hey, I'm serious here. Things will only escalate. The last person they did this to ended up fleeing the temple. They've done it before and gotten away with it, so they'll do it again." Ray sighed, realizing the direction Simeon was headed. "You said it yourself. It's happened before and will happen again. So things won't change unless someone does something. If I intervene, it won't alter the situation. Sappha needs to stand up for herself. There are plenty of people like them out in the world, so when it happens again and no one is there to protect her, what is she going to do? Cry like she did now? Will a white knight like you come to her rescue?" Simeon's face flushed with embarrassment at the remark. "Besides, what am I supposed to do? She's stronger than me. I'm just a weakling who'll get hurt in the process, Ray's added, as he continued chopping the carrots before him. But she's your SI dash. Enough, Ray's interjected sharply. It was the first time he had raised his voice, especially at Simeon. Something about the entire conversation rubbed Ray's the wrong way. It didn't help that his body was reacting contrary to his thoughts. When he saw his sister earlier, he yearned to rush over and embrace her. But Ray's also understood that just because someone is family doesn't mean they need to be kind to you. Family, being the ones closest to you, are often the ones who can hurt you the most. It was best for Sappha to become stronger independently. Outside, a group of children were sweeping the ground. Sappha was near the stairs leading up to the temple, while Grin and the twins occupied the vast courtyard. They occasionally glanced over their shoulders at Sappha. That was really clever what you did back there, Gio chuckled. How long do you think this one will last? Bio inquired. I don't know. She might stay a bit longer since she has her brother with her. Yeah, but he's a weakling. It's not like he can do anything. Maybe we should target him as well. That way, she'll leave quicker, and they'll both be gone. No, Grin interjected, interrupting the two. Leave her brother alone. He seems unaffected by what is happening. I'm sure the two aren't close, and besides, like you said, he's weak. There's nothing to worry about. Although Grin expressed these thoughts, he was contemplating something different. There was something disconcerting about the new boy. I'm not sure if I imagined it or not, but when he came out with Crone and saw his sister, it was only for a moment, but those eyes. I don't know why, but my whole body trembles every time I think about it. As evening approached, mirroring the day before, it was time for their afternoon training. Ray's, once more involved in the physical exercises, struggled as he had previously, but endeavored to push himself a bit further. I think I lasted 3 minutes and 25 seconds this time. If I stay on track, I can improve bit by bit. It's a shame there are no elixirs here, but if there are cultivation pills, I might find a way to acquire more, Ray's mused. Considering this, he deemed it too risky. The temple was secluded, far from the central city, and the only cultivation aids of value were from the Pagna warriors. Unless he courted danger, he needed to chart his own path for growth. With my current stamina, I might not even make it there and back before sunrise. During the run, Sappha was near the lead, running closely behind Grin. Seeing this, Grin quickened his pace. Other students began to lag, but Sappha, determination etched on her face, maintained her speed. Grin thought with a hint of irritation. What's she trying to prove? Overtake me? Just who does she think she is? In a sudden move, Grin lifted his foot carefully, and at the right time, he stomped on Sappha's foot, causing her to trip. Because of their swift pace, she fell hard, scraping her hand against the ground. Seeing the mishap, Crone swiftly ordered everyone to stop and move to the next phase. Simeon, meanwhile, eyed Grin and the twins with evident displeasure, occasionally shooting glances at Ray's. Does he genuinely not care about his sister? Simeon pondered. Next came meditation, channeling energy and refining one's chi. Ray's enjoyed this immensely, feeling the power of his dark core grow stronger. Soon, they transitioned to the practical lesson. Now that you've mastered the two-step shift, I want to teach you about controlling distance in a real scenario, Crone announced. Pair up with someone of similar ability. Stand with your fist just touching your opponent's nose. Take 2 steps back, execute the two-step shift, and return to the starting position. Your partner's task is to focus on the incoming fist, resisting the urge to flinch. Start slow, then gradually increase speed. If a hit seems inevitable, dodge, but only if you see it coming. As the students began to pair up, Simeon approached Ray's. Hey, I know I'm ahead of you in this, but first, I think I'm the only one who talks to you, and secondly, matching you against the younger ones? It's clearly a disadvantage. Ray's merely shrugged in response. Simeon initiated, throwing punches without the steps. Ray's was unfazed. Even when Simeon incorporated the two-step shift, Ray's remained steady, almost looking a little bored. Is it really not that frightening? Simeon inquired. Are you trying to get me to actually hit you? Simeon had to admit, right now Ray's had a really punchable face. He soon regretted asking. Ray's, in a mock attempt, sent a fist towards Simeon, who stumbled back in surprise. "How are you so composed? I couldn't even keep my eyes open." Simeon questioned. Ray's thought, being a mage, I've faced countless magical formations. A fist is the least of my concerns. He silently wondered how he'd fare against a genuine Pagna warrior. Elsewhere, Sappho was seeking a partner. As she spotted her brother, excitement filled her eyes, ready to approach him, but Grin stepped in her way. Our scores on the pillar test were similar, and we're about the same height. No one else came close to our results, so we should be partners, right? Trapped by Grin's logic and unable to voice her thoughts, Sappho resorted to sign language. "All right, here I go," Grin stated, letting out his fist. Overzealous, he shot his fist out, striking Sappho's nose. Blood splattered as she fell, dazed and hurt. "I'm so sorry. I misjudged the distance. I should have listened to Crone," Grin exclaimed, offering a helping hand and bowing several times. Sappho, overwhelmed with emotion and on the verge of tears, refused the gesture. With her family gone and her brother's indifference, she felt utterly lost and alone. When she heard Crone praising her for her skills in martial arts, she thought she could immerse herself in that. But now she was being treated this way. Why? Simeon took a step forward, halting abruptly and staring at the ground. "I really want to help," Simeon thought. "It's clear they're doing this intentionally. Even if I mention it to Mr. Crone, he'll just reprimand them. He won't expel them from the temple. They're too talented, and then they'll target me. If that happens, I'm not sure I can handle it. If I leave the temple, my dream of becoming a Pagna warrior will be shattered." Due to the unfortunate events that occurred, Crone had paired them up differently, and the training soon ended for the night. Back in their room, Sappho gingerly touched her nose. It was sore, but didn't seem broken. She was stronger than she appeared, or perhaps Grin wasn't as forceful as he seemed. Either way, it was difficult for her to fall asleep. "As usual, don't tell anyone what I'm doing," Reyes said, sliding the door open. However, he didn't walk out and just stood by the door before sliding it back again. "If you're frustrated, sad, angry, annoyed, or whatever you're feeling right now, if you don't do something about it now, you will end up feeling a lot worse later on. Some advice for you: you should fight back." Opening the door, Reyes left just like that. Instead of going to the courtyard this time, he needed to head to a more secluded area. The temple was located partly up a large hilltop and was surrounded by trees in all different directions. Walking out of the temple was easier, and after he was a distance away somewhere in the forest with enough space, he finally stopped, huffing and puffing from his steps. I wonder if Crone thought I would be heading outside of the temple. He did tell me to consume the pill away from the eyes of others, and I assume that means my sister as well. Reyes broke off a branch and started to draw a circle on the ground. After drawing the circle, he then began to draw many symbols inside of it. The symbols in the magic circle are instructions for the energy to be used in a certain way. With my life as an outcast, I couldn't just use the normal facilities other mages had, so I had to memorize the magic circles. I'm sure this was a magic circle that opened up a portal to a relatively safe place with the creatures I'm looking for, but I am on a different planet altogether, which could mean that these symbols could lead me to a different place altogether. For now, it's best that I don't try and experiment, though, and stick with what I know. Lifting up the stick, Reyes was proud of the design he had drawn, and now there was just one last step. He took the pill out from its container and stretched forward, dropping it in the middle. Then, walking to the edge of the circle, dark magic surrounded his index finger as he touched the circle on the very edge. Immediately, the magic circle started to glow a faint purple. It was moving, filling the lines that Reyes had carefully drawn. When all the lines were filled, it started to light up, and the energy from the pill was being drawn out. I would have liked to have known what would have happened if I was to eat the pill, but right now, this is the much safer bet. Reyes had a large grin on his face because right in front of his eyes was a large glowing portal. It looked like a giant floating mirror, but there was no reflection. Instead, a mystical glowing power that was lighting up the forest. It worked, Reyes said to himself, and didn't hesitate as he took a step forward into the portal. Let's get stronger, and then I can deal with this world of martial arts. Stepping through the portal was always bizarre. The sensation was like temporarily losing one's grip on existence, ethereal and almost vacant. Once on the other side, sensations like the brush of the wind would slowly seep back into one's awareness. No matter how many times it was experienced, that fleeting emptiness was something impossible to grow accustomed to. As Ray's boot met solid ground, the portal behind him snapped shut with a near-electric buzz. Taking in his surroundings, a whirlwind of questions consumed him. Where am I? Ray's pondered. This doesn't resemble Alterian. I used the identical magic circle formation. How did I end up somewhere entirely unfamiliar? Above him, the night sky was painted with the hues of a large red moon, bathing everything beneath in a crimson glow. Cobblestones lay underfoot, and the area was strewn with decaying crates, tarnished silver, and items too eroded to discern. However, what dominated his view was an imposing building, reminiscent of the ancient architecture of Race World. It had the majesty of a coliseum, though time had taken its toll on the structure. A noticeable absence of life, even vegetation, made the scene eerie. Spotting the imprint of his magic circle on the ground, Ray's hastily erased it with his foot, making a mental note of his surroundings. Between the collapsed wagon and those sinister-looking trees forming a heart shape, he cataloged the location in his mind. The residual energy of a portal remained for a few days. As long as Ray's returned and sketched the same formation, infusing it with his magic, a gateway back to his new homeland would manifest. But he didn't want to risk someone else activating it, hence the need to remove the marking. For now, exploration seemed the only logical course of action. He wondered if any records of this place existed in Alterian. Through their portal project, mages had visited numerous worlds, each distinctly unique. Some held treasures potent even for mages, like the book Rays had procured, the one containing the transmigration spell. While intelligent life remained an undiscovered mystery, remnants of past life were prevalent on these worlds. Drawn to the grandeur of the Colosseum, Rays ascended its steps. The distant cityscape beckoned, but the immediate allure of the massive structure was irresistible. Suddenly, a guttural growl reverberated from his right. Turning, Ray's eyes locked onto a capsized carriage, behind which glowed 3 menacing eyes. "Trust me, growling at me won't end well for you," Ray's warned, magic pulsating around his entire hand, amplifying in intensity. With a terrifying roar, a beastly creature lunged from the shadows of the carriage. About the size of a husky, but far more menacing with its triad of eyes, spike-laden back, and hairless, ruby-red skin. As it launched toward him, Rays thrust forward, dark pulse. A surge of shadowy energy burst forth, slamming into the creature, piercing its midsection. As it hurtled onward, Rays deftly evaded its snapping jaws with a roll. Recomposing himself, he noticed the creature, though gravely injured, remained a threat. Lifting his arm, he pointed it at the head and unleashed a smaller, yet more focused dark pulse, instantly incapacitating the beast. "Ugh, my leg is killing me." Maybe the 2-step shift would have been smarter. Why'd I trust my instincts? The creature, once defeated, emitted a mysterious black mist. The ethereal veil floated towards Rays, sinking seamlessly into his skin, drawn magnetically towards his dark core. The perks of dark magic that my previous body couldn't capitalize on. A smirk played on Ray's lips. Each life taken boosts the dark element. It's why it's been shunned, labeled as taboo. My previous wind core limited my dark potential. Not this time. His gaze landed on the fallen beast, reflecting on their skirmish. Stronger attacks, but such limited mana. 3 more dark pulses at most without casting anything else. His hands got to work, tearing into the creature with unsettling expertise. Blood spurted and flesh parted until he found his prize, a crystal. Bingo. This is why I'm here. His eyes sparkled with excitement. The crystal shimmered faintly, a muted yellow hue hinting at its power. The creature was what was known as a basic creature, which gave basic crystals like this one. To the normal folk, it was a treasure. To the top mages, it was nothing. But to a one-star mage like Ray's, every bit mattered. Tucking the crystal away, he diverted his attention to the nearby crates and cases. Moments later, he held up a ring. Finding a patch of ground, he began to craft another magic circle. In my former life, status restrained me. I made ends meet selling enhanced gear and elixirs to boost mages. Dark magic creations were the pinnacle, if only they didn't come with their quirks. Upon finishing the circle, the ring and crystal met. Fueled by dark magic, an item could reach a caliber fit for a 3-star mage. A swift magic-infused gesture lit the circle. The silver ring began its transformation, emerging with a regal purple hue. "Reveal the ring's properties," Rays commanded. A ghostly whisper answered. "The cursed dark ring. The item is bound to a single user. If taken off, the ring will be destroyed. If destroyed, the user will lose 10% of its dark attribute power." The catch of dark magic: the items were always cursed, meaning it always demanded a price. A general use item had been transformed into something personal and untradeable. On top of that, if the item was destroyed, even in battle, or Rays wanted to use a better item in the future, he would have to deal with losing some of his power. For the one who wears this ring, with each life taken with the use of dark magic, a portion of their mana will return. Yes, that's the 3-star magic boost I needed. Rays slid the ring onto his index finger. A brief surge of power, an intimate connection with his core, and then nothing. With this, hunting beasts just got a lot easier. He resumed his journey towards the Colosseum. Suddenly, a distant scream echoed. "Ark!" Ray's steps faltered. Was that a human? Locating where the sound had come from, it appeared it was towards the large building to his right, the place he was originally going to head to. One would be a fool to head over to a scream like that, Rays thought. That is only a recipe to get killed. We're not in some kind of horror movie, so it's best that I stay away from that. With this thought in mind, Rays decided to continue to explore the outside platform that went along the side of the large building. The noise was bothering Rays, though, and for a number of reasons. One, this was a portal to another planet, one with the same creatures that he had come across when he went through portals on Altarian. Not once had they ever come across another human. So, does that mean there's another mage here doing a hunt as well? The creatures here don't seem to be of high level, so at most the mages would be around 2 stars. Then again, it could be someone who is just from this planet, a first. Ray soon had to stop in the middle of his thoughts, though, as the same creature from before appeared from behind one of the crates, growling and staring at him with its piercing eyes. "I understand how you feel. I killed your friend earlier, right? Was it your aunt, brother perhaps? Look, let's make a deal. If you don't attack me, I won't attack you, okay?" Almost immediately after saying those words, the beast leapt toward him again, right in the air. The monsters of other worlds, if the same, often attacked in the same manner. At the same time, they were nearly always hostile to anyone they met. It was kill or be killed. This was how they had discovered the use of the crystals in their bodies in the first place. Rather than rolling away, Rays waited until the right moment, and he positioned his feet, just like he had done in training. Then, leaping off his back foot and stepping with his front, he threw out a fist. Dark aura flowed out from it. Dark pulse. The fist pulsated and shot the magic out fiercer than before, ripping the top half of the dog's head away, killing it in one hit and causing it to fall to the floor. The result of adding the 2-step shift, while throwing out a punch, amplifies the dark pulse. Even if I don't make direct contact, it's stronger than I thought. Just like before, the dark essence lifted from the dead creature and flowed right into Rays. When it connected with his dark core, the ring on his finger lit up as well. 16/250 dark essence absorbed. The dark ring had another effect. Having connected with his dark core, it gave him a better way to track his affinity with the dark attribute. Now, when cultivating the dark essence or killing creatures, he would have an idea of how much stronger his dark magic was getting. For now, there was a cap, but each time he raised a star mage level, the cap would also increase, allowing his dark magic to grow even stronger than before. A portion of your mana has been restored. The other effect of the ring had also kicked in, allowing him to use the Dark Pulse skill once again. But there was something that hadn't recovered, and that was his stamina. Using the two-step shift because of this weak body, each time I use it with the Dark Pulse, its effect will weaken. I think this body could only do it perfectly about 3 times. Also, this naming is a bit confusing. Let's just call them Dark Pulse and Dark Strike for now. For a mage, saying the spells was actually an important part of performing the spells. One would have to have an image of the spell formation in their mind when they produced the skill they said. Attaching a word to each formation allowed for the image to easily appear in their head, giving them a chance to use the attacks quicker with the correct formation. Essentially, one would connect the word to the formation, and it was a lot easier to remember the word than the image of the formation in their head. Another crystal had been obtained, and the best part was this crystal was all his to use. He didn't need to use it to create an item. He could instead use it to increase his own magic powers. Knelt down, Reyes was admiring the crystal in his hand with a large smile on his face. "Stop right there," a voice shouted from behind, slightly high in pitch, sounding like a female. "Don't tell me. I decided to walk around the place, so I would avoid everyone. You do not have permission to be here. Who are you? State your name and where you're from," the person demanded. "Don't have permission?" Reyes said, standing up and turning around. He wanted to have a look at just what type of person could be so bold as to make such a claim. "Are you the owner of this place or something? Who are you to ask for permission?" Reyes asked, as his anger had slightly taken over. The way the person spoke reminded him of the many arrogant mages who looked down on all the others. The two-faced bastards in the tower that preached all sorts of things but then did what they wanted themselves. When seeing the person in front of him, Reyes was relatively surprised by what he saw. It was a young woman, a beautiful one at that. Her straight black hair was tied up in a ponytail, while part of her fringe stuck out over to one side. However, her skin seemed to be glowing even in this light, but the surprising thing wasn't her beauty. Reyes had seen plenty of beautiful mages, especially ones who would use magic to enhance their looks and change with the fads, creating big lips one day, big bums the next, and even large knees at one point had become a fad. What Reyes was surprised about was what she was wearing. She was covered in a white and gold type of cloth material. It was tight-fitting around the chest and waist, but a little loose around the arms, and in her hand, pointing right towards Reyes, was a sword. She's clearly not a mage. She almost looks like. "You must answer me," the woman demanded again. "This area is owned by the Dawnblade clan. State what clan you are from. If you cannot answer me, I will get rid of you right here. I swear on my name, Beatrix Highborn." It was now very clear. Reyes was certain of it. This person was from the same world as him. Not the world of mages, but the world of martial arts. Did he just teleport to a different area? No, he was sure of it by the color of the moon. This was another planet. So why was there a Pagna warrior in front of him? Reyes was wondering if he should mention the name of the Red Brigade clan, or say no name at all, since he wasn't technically from there. He also had no idea what stage this warrior was at. In the end, Reyes had decided to take a risk. "I'm from this planet," Reyes answered. "From this planet? Then you are just a beast disguised as a human. You must die." Beatrix shifted forward with her sword pointed. It was at incredible speed. It was clear that she was able to use chi, and his guess about her being a Pagna warrior was right. "I can't avoid this. This body is too slow. I have no choice." Reyes had no skills that could quickly move him out of the way, nor did he have any magic. So he did the only few things he could do. He got into a stance and shifted forward. The two-step shift, so he is a Pagna warrior. Beatrix thought, but that's such a basic skill. Why would someone use that in this situation? "Dark Strike," Reyes shouted out, throwing his fist, gathering his magic. The movements were simple, too simple, and Beatrix was able to avoid the strike, and instead she thrust her sword forward with her chi, right toward Reyes' chest. "I thought you would do that. Go right for the chest, and aim for the kill. I have no choice. It will take up nearly all my mana, but I have to survive." Shrouded Heart. The sword hit Reyes right on the chest, and his entire body was sent flying through the air. His body crashed through the large building that was to his side, and he was no longer in Beatrix's sight. That felt a little strange, Beatrix thought, looking at her sword. It was fine, but what was of more concern was her own shoulder. Even though the fist hadn't connected, something else did. What clan or faction was he from? The power from the sword strike was unexpected for Reyes, as his whole body was lifted into the air and hurled like a cannonball. Similarly, he had crashed right through the walls of the building, eventually landing on the ground, covered in dust. "Coop," Reyes coughed, feeling a thumping pain on his back. Thankfully, the walls were relatively brittle, having decayed for so long. Otherwise, the hit would have taken a bigger toll on his weakened body. Lying on the floor for a moment, Reyes pressed his hand against his chest over his heart, right where the sword strike had hit him. If I didn't use the skill Shrouded Heart, I would have died, Reyes thought to himself. As a one-star mage with only the dark attribute, there were only so many formations and spells that Reyes could use. Dark magic wasn't heavily researched until him, so there were fewer spells compared to other attributes. In total, Reyes could use 5 different spells right now. Dark Pulse was an offensive move, gathering and condensing the dark energy into a singular beam. And there was the skill he had just used to save his life, Shrouded Heart. This skill would gather all of the mana it could, creating a type of barrier. The barrier would expand slightly out of the chest, appearing just outside one's clothing. However, the skill was not to be used lightly. For one, it used up all of one's mana regardless of the amount. Even Reyes, as a 9-star mage, would deplete all his mana using this skill, rendering him unable to fight afterward and preventing the use of other magical skills while it was active. The second downside was that the skill would only cover the heart. If the attacker had aimed for his head, Reyes would be dead right now. It was a powerful defensive skill, but if one knew its weaknesses, it was practically useless. You know, with how long you've been lying there, one would think you were dead, a quirky young voice said. Rolling his eyes to the top of his head, Reyes saw an upside-down face smiling right at him. For F***'s sake, what did I do to deserve this? Reyes said aloud. It was pointless now. He had used all his mana and had been thrown from one person to another, seemingly another martial artist, judging by the dark gray clothing they wore. Someone's not in a good mood, the man remarked. Although I do understand, since you did just come crashing through that wall. It couldn't have felt nice. Kirk, do you have one of those energy pills? A large, bald-headed man appeared by the young man's side, and from a bag around his waist, he pulled out a red-colored pill. It looked similar in size and energy to the pill that Crone had given Reyes. Do you really think I'm going to eat a pill a stranger G8 dash? The man shoved the pill forcefully into Reyes' mouth. Just eat the damn thing. Swallowing the pill, it didn't take long for it to have an effect. Energy spread out, and a tingling sensation could be felt all over Reyes as his body absorbed it. His aching back and sore chest began to dissipate. However, his depleted mana had yet to return. That would slowly come back to him. That worked, Reyes exclaimed. I believe you're looking for the words, thank you. The man smiled. Now, no longer on the brink of death, Reyes got a proper look at the people he had encountered. Similar to the girl he had just met, they were all wearing martial arts-type cloth material, wrapped around them like a robe. There were 4 of them in total. 2 of them had weapons, while the other 2 appeared unarmed. The man who had force-fed Reyes had long hair, tied up on a ponytail like the woman from before, but his fringe parted in 2 ways. While he did look young, his jaw and eyes were incredibly sharp. His kind words and playful demeanor didn't match his face. A man continued to groan in the background. The group, along with Reyes, was currently on the 3rd floor of the building. They were in a hallway that was as much destroyed as the outside. Originally, Reyes thought the outside looked bad and was falling apart, but the other side of the building was completely open. There was no wall at all, allowing one to see the streets and other crumbling buildings in the distance. On the floor, one of the men was screaming, holding the top of his knee, while another was attending to a wound on his shin. The wound didn't look ordinary, as it was pulsating in a green color, having burnt the top layer of skin and seeming to still move. It's a shame these pills do nothing to help him out. They're useless, the man said. It might be best for us to head back. From a distance, Rays recognized something similar about the wound. During mage raids, they had suffered similar attacks from beasts. Rays began to walk over for a closer look. "What are you doing?" the young man asked. "I don't like to have debts, so consider this a debt paid," Rays said. The man attending to the wound looked unsure about Rays approaching them. He looked to the young man who seemed to be the boss of the group, who politely nodded his head. Rays, now close enough, confirmed it was the same type of wound after all. Placing his hands at the top of the knee and the bottom of the foot, he closed his eyes. "I've barely recovered any mana back. I don't even have enough strength to perform a dark pulse, but I can at least do a dark clean of this level," Rays thought. "Dark clean?" Rays whispered quietly, and the dark energy from his hands started to trickle, moving over the green, pulsating parts of the wound. Dark clean was one of the other skills that Rays could do, the skill that took the least amount of mana, depending on how it was used. Dark energy was destructive in nature, and this skill allowed it to destroy certain things on a level as long as it could be covered in dark magic. Rays had used it internally on himself when he had been hurt by magic that would take over one's body. Or in cases like this, where an infection, a parasite, venom, and things of similar nature were in or on one's body. The dark energy stayed on it for a moment, and then it completely disappeared, but with it, so had the green color on the wound. From the look on a man's face, the pain did as well. "It's gone," the one attending to the wound said. "It's completely gone." The young man's eyes widened with surprise. "The infection is gone, but the wound still needs to be treated and healed. Do your best to bandage it up," Rays said. "This is not us being equal," the young man said. "You have done me a far bigger favor than you might have realized. Are you at the middle stage, or possibly the deity stage?" Rays had heard these stages before. They were high-level Pagna warriors. So why was he being confused as one now? How had he really been that special? Mages eventually would end up carrying potions around that would not just take away the infection, but heal the wound as well. The good thing was he now knew when he got back that he should keep certain skills to himself if he didn't want to cause a misunderstanding. I'm just a bit different," Rays answered. The expression on the young man's face didn't change, making it hard for Rays to read. The proposal in itself was quite absurd. Since he was only a teen, wouldn't it be impossible for him to have reached those stages already? And wouldn't people of that status be wildly known? The question seemed to be more of a probing one. "Come back," the young man cheerily said. As I said, what you have done is too much. I now clearly owe you a reward. In a week's time, I will prepare something nice for you. Come back here, and I promise it will be worth your time." Over time, Rays had learned to judge people, but often more than not, he wouldn't even trust his own judgment, because he had learned the best thing to do was to just not trust anyone at all. "We'll see. I won't make any promises," Rays answered. The young man smiled and nodded, seemingly taking Rays' answer as a yes. "The name is Dame." "Oh, great one. Do you mind telling me your name?" Telling him his real name might cause problems in the future if Dame was indeed from the same world as him. But Rays had a sneaky thought that made him inwardly laugh. The idea that one day the Grand Magus would hear this name again and be shaking in their boots was filling him with ecstasy. "I'm the Dark Magus," Rays answered. "Remember it." "I see," Dame bowed down politely. "Well, I hope we meet again, Dark Magus, and for you to receive your reward." "At least you guys are a lot nicer than that woman," Rays commented. "Woman?" For the first time, Dame seemed a little frightened. "Yeah, the woman with the white and golden clothing," Rays said. Nearly all the mouths of the men there were about to drop to the floor. They were quickly rushing to their feet. "You!" a loud voice bellowed. From the side, through the hole that Rays had entered from, the same woman in white clothing was standing there with her sword pointed right at Rays again. "How did you live? How did you survive?" Dame looked at Rays, and now it made sense why he had come flying through the wall. Perhaps that should have been the first question for him to ask, but instead, he was now even more amazed by the Dark Magus. I was only trying to see his reaction when I asked him about his stage, but he managed to survive a strike from Beatatrix, who's at the peak of the initial stage. The peak of the initial stage meant that Beatatrix was a Pagna warrior at the 6th rank. Although rank 1 to 6 warriors were all considered the initial stage, there was a large difference between one and the other. Each rank was a breakthrough in power, martial arts, and overall body structure as well. If one was a stage higher, they should never lose to a stage below. Although there were cases where that happened, it would be an embarrassing moment for the Pagna warrior. Being at the 6th rank meant they were on the cusp of going from the initial stage to the middle stage. These stages were where the bottlenecks were for most. Only a few in the world would be able to break out of the initial stage, which was why Beatrix, being at the 6th rank, was practically one of the strongest fighters in existence. She could take out an entire squadron and small clans if she wanted to. So then how did someone who had used the basic two-step shift, a martial arts move that didn't even belong to any clan, survive her strike that was embedded with chi? How did you survive? Beatrix asked, with her sword pointed at Ray's once again. The same thought was running through Dame's head. When he came flying through the building from before, was that an attack from Beatrix? If he's still alive, then doesn't he have something that has the same power as a Pagna warrior at the peak of the initial stage? I thought he was... Never mind. Beatrix's eyes soon landed on the others, as she spotted the color of the uniforms the others were wearing. You know that this is a prohibited area. No one is allowed in here without the permission of the Dawnblade clan. We have the rights to this portal. State where you are from. She asked. Ray's had seen this before. He had just been through it himself moments ago, and any second now, he was sure she would attack. Huh. Dame smiled, as his men moved to his side, while the injured man remained at the back. His wound had only just been wrapped up, but it would be difficult for him to fight. Why are you asking questions you already know the answer to? Dame said. Then I shall get rid of you. Beatrix shouted, as she charged forward once again with her sword glowing with power. Dame widened his stance, and so did the three next to him. Energy was building up from within. All 6 of their hands swung out, hitting the sword, causing sparks of energy to fly. The whole building was shaking, and part of the floor was already falling apart. I hate it when I'm right, Ray said to himself, but he was quite amazed. He could see that Dame and his men were able to handle the strike from the swordsman, which meant he wasn't so weak himself. Whoever was watching this, Ray's knew one thing. If he was to get into a fight with any of them, even the men by Dame's side, Ray's would be no match for them. The strength that was being used right now was close to that of 4-star magic. Get out of here, Dark Magus! Dame shouted, looking back, sweat running down his face. I'll survive. You don't have to worry about me. Just remember our deal. The ground underneath Dame's feet started to break, and eventually, all 3 of them fell. Not letting up, Beatrix had followed the 2 of them down below, and several clashes, loud bangs, and vibrations were felt. Ray's could now only imagine what was going on below, but this was his only chance to get out of here. Going to the edge, there were parts of the building that had crumbled and were leaning up against the outside of the building. It had made a type of walkway that one could jump and run across, making it to the bottom floor. Reaching the bottom floor, Ray started to run. He had no intention of watching the fight and finding out the outcome. He had already escaped death once, perhaps twice with this new body, so he wasn't going to stick around. Seeing the staircase up ahead, he knew he was on the right path, but something had caught his eye. Holy **T. Ray's was standing in a field full of dead beasts. There were around 8 of the same dog creatures that Ray's had faced. All of them had a clean cut on their body, having been slashed in half, head decapitated. It was clear that they had all been killed in one strike. Was all of this the work of that swordsman from before? Wait a second, she didn't come in that long after attacking me, and from the looks of it, Ray's rushed over and immediately started to dig into the beast's body. He rummaged around until pulling out a bloody crystal and holding it up to the light. She didn't take the crystals out. This is great. I was worried that going into this portal would have been a waste if I had just returned with 1 crystal. But now, not wasting time, Ray's quickly went through each of the dogs. From the loud explosions he could hear behind him, the 2 groups were still fighting against each other. Would there ever be a chance like this for him again? After gathering all 8 of the crystals, Ray's now had a total of 9 in his possession. He couldn't use them here. so it was time for him to head back. Huffing and panting, he ran down the stairs, across the cobblestone pathway, and looking around, he could see the landmarks from before. Quickly, while peeking over his shoulder, he started to redraw the magic circle. There was enough dirt on the ground for it to work. The sound of the fighting has stopped. Does that mean one of them won? If anything, it means I need to hurry this up. Ray's thought. Finally, the magic circle had been completed, and he activated it, igniting it with a part of his magic. The portal opened up right in front of him, and he looked back one more time. You said we would meet again, but I'm not too sure about that. I guess we'll have to see, Ray said, as he stepped through the portal, his whole body disappearing with it, the portal sealing up behind him. A short while later, Beatrix landed back on the lower platform outside. She had a large frown on her face, and some of her clothes were torn. Those dirty bastards, Beatrix exclaimed. I can't believe they would use such a cheap method to get away. I shouldn't have expected anything less from those guys. She soon let out a big sigh, trying not to let it get to her. At least I can go collect those crystals and earn some coin while I'm here. It's the only thing that will have made this trip worthwhile. Reaching the area from before, she stopped dead in her tracks as she looked at the scene. The bodies of the dead creatures didn't look the same as she remembered. Rushing over to one, there was no need for her to inspect it further. Someone took the crystals. Someone took my crystals. Beatrix's face was turning red, and she was reaching a boiling point. It was him. It had to be that guy that escaped before. What do they call him? Dark Magus. Well, you've just added yourself to my hit list. The name Pagna Warriors had come about in a simple way. It was because the world of martial arts that they lived in was called Pagna. It was a world that was split into 3 continents with small areas of sea between them. One of the continents, known as the East Continent, solely belonged to the clans in the Light faction, and the biggest empire in Pagna also resided there, boasting the largest military force. The West Continent had 2 factions, the Dark and the Demonic faction. The Dark faction clans were mostly based in the south, with the Demonic faction based in the north. Then there was the final continent, the North Continent. It was uninhabited land, or at least that was the theory. There was no map that dictated how big, what shape or size the place was, but by all of the factions as well as the locals, it was deemed a place impossible to explore. The seas nearby were treacherous. Whirlpools surrounded the land. Lightning would strike on the surface, and the waves were impossible to sail through for any ship. This was the current world of Pagna. Somewhere on the massive continents, there was one place in particular that was special, a place which belonged to the Neverfall clan. The place was known as the Abyssal Pinnacle. It was an ancient, inverted mountain. Instead of rising from the earth, it delved deep in, forming a spiraling abyss. Legends once stated that a demon had fallen from the sky and upon impact had created the place. Over centuries, the Neverfall clan has used it as their base, and returning to the base was none other than Dame and his group. They were currently walking down a spiraling staircase that went deeper into the clan's base. The base was split into different levels. On the upper levels, pathways were carved into the side of the walls. The lower members lived and trained here, and as they cultivated and grew their powers, they were allowed to head to the lower levels. Sir, where are you going? Fixteen asked. Fixteen was Dame's right-hand man. The 2 of them had been together since they were young and were around the same age. They had even attended the Pagna Academy together. If there was anyone that Dame trusted, it was him. I mean, are we going to inform the master of our return, or the fact that we ran into Beatrix Highborn? If she finds out who you are, it could cause us a big headache, Fixteen said. We barely managed to escape with our lives, Kirk said, patting the sweat on the top of his large bald head. The abyss also got hotter as one went further down. Don't you see? That's what's not important right now, Dame smiled. Carlson's leg is completely fine. They actually managed to heal the infection of a beast, something that only middle-stage warriors are able to do. Okay, Fixteen said as he was trying to climb down the stairs faster to catch up to Dame, who was speeding off ahead. Doesn't that just mean he's a middle-stage warrior? Fixteen said, although that is impressive, I still don't understand why you are acting this way. It's not as if you've never seen a middle-stage warrior before. Stopping in his tracks, Dame turned around with his fists by his hips. The look was the same as a parent that was disappointed in the actions of their child. "Have you ever seen him before?" Dame asked. "Don't you think we would have known someone if they were at the middle stage and looked that young? The whole world would have known of him. And there's one thing that you probably missed." Dame tapped the side of his nose and had a large smirk on his face. "That kid, he had next to no chi. That's why the pill worked on him so well." All of the faces in the group had dropped. "No chi," Carlson said. "That's impossible. Otherwise, how would he have been able to heal my leg?" "Exactly," Dame said, as he continued to hurry down the stairs, and the others had to follow to try to listen to his explanation. Not only did he have no chi, but he was able to survive an attack from Beatatrix, and to finish it all off, he healed your leg. It's as clear as day. What he used were powers that aren't from our world. The others didn't say anything because they thought what Dame was suggesting was crazy talk. How long had they been using the portals to travel to other realms, to other worlds and dungeons? Yet none of them ever had signs of human life, and not humans that looked like them. What were the chances that they would be the ones to discover this? This was something that would have at least been revealed by one of the deity stage warriors. Eventually, after the group went deeper into the inverted mountain, they came across what was known as the Abyssal Library. It was a vast cavern filled with ancient scrolls, tomes, and books. In here, there were forbidden techniques, rituals, and the clan's secrets. Some of the scrolls and books were said to whisper to only those that they felt worthy of hearing their words. "So what are we doing in the clan's library then?" Fixteen asked. "That you so desperately had to get to before going to the master. Don't you remember what I said?" Dame replied, as he was scanning the bookshelves, looking for something in particular. "The Dark Magus is one that is not from our world, which means they have extreme knowledge, possibly items and more that we don't have here. This world is about give and take, and, judging by how he reacted, he is also one that believes in this concept. If we give him a few things, then I'm sure there are things that we can get in return from him. It's quite possible he could be the one that could change our entire clan forever, and the status quo that has existed for a long time will finally break." Just then, Dame had found what he was looking for and pulled out a book. "You can't be serious," Kirk said, looking around. "That's one of our clan's techniques. We aren't allowed to teach that to outsiders. If someone finds out what you did, you could be executed." "Relax yourself," Dame said. "Think of the big picture. Think of what we could get in return from him. The Dark Magus will be our biggest helper and the start of a change in our world." A portal opened up in the middle of the forest, and stepping out of it was Reyes, who had managed to return safely. He turned his head to look behind him, making sure that the portal closed, because the last thing he wanted was for any of those creatures to come after him. "That wasn't what I was expecting from my first outing," Reyes thought. "Anyway, it's clear now. The formation I knew for opening portals back at Altarian works differently here. If I'm not careful and start journeying into different dimensions, I could put myself in a dangerous position, especially if I come across some powerful creatures." A slight tingle around his chest, where the sword had hit him, was felt. All right, an even more dangerous position, but it wasn't all bad. Reyes was still wearing the clothing of the Temple Kids. It was a simple, dirty brown cloth material with a band around his waist. The handy thing was that inside there were pockets. It was designed this way to prevent items from falling out easily, though it did look a bit strange when one would retrieve something. One might fear pulling out something inappropriate, which in his world could lead to a long imprisonment. In his hand were the small crystals he had obtained. "Finally, with these, I can increase the strength of my mana core. It won't be enough for me to reach the second stage, even if I absorb all 9. Ray started to think about the best use for the crystals. Considering how dangerous it was entering the portal the first time, he wasn't eager to return immediately. I'll need to keep 1 crystal to open the portal again, just in case. It would be good to create a mana potion with one of these as well, so I don't end up in the same situation again. And I suppose I'll need ones in case I want to create more items. Right now, I only have the dark attribute. These are just regular crystals, so they won't help me gain affinity with other attributes. I might have to rely on enhancing items for a while and deal with them being cursed. The night sky lingered, but Reyes thought it was best to absorb the crystals right there. He sat down, placed the crystals in front of him, and closed his eyes. Energy swirled in the air, and dark energy escaped from his body. It swirled around the 5 crystals, causing them to levitate. They were lifted by the controlled energy in the air. As the dark energy enveloped each crystal, it started to glow, establishing a connection with the core in Rey's heart. The outside of the mana core was swirling rapidly, and the energy began to break down the crystals. They transformed into dust particles that resembled glitter. The particles gravitated towards Reyes, and a gentle glow radiated from his body. He could feel his mana increasing with the absorption of each crystal, strengthening his core and enabling him to harness more of the world's energy. It felt almost as if he had been restricted from breathing before, but now he could take in and expel a much larger breath. The glow around his body faded, and upon opening his eyes, the 5 crystals had vanished. The remaining 4 were safely stored in his pocket for future use. As I thought, it's not enough for me to become a 2-star mage, but I now have enough mana to cast about 7 dark pulses. Those beast dogs won't stand a chance. Eventually, Reyes returned to the temple and to his room. The sliding of the door seemed to wake his sister, who rubbed her eyes. With a gesture, Reyes signaled her to go back to sleep, for there was one more task at hand. I can't just keep the crystals in my pocket. We change our clothes daily, and the material of these garments is fragile. Half the trousers I receive have holes where a crystal would fall right through. As if on cue, a crystal sliced a hole in his pocket, sliding down his leg and clattering to the floor, rousing his sister again. Now, she merely stared at Reyes, who was bent down, retrieving the crystals. Frozen in place, he hoped the sound might lull her back to sleep. Instead, their eyes locked in a mutual gaze. Maybe she won't even recognize these crystals? Perhaps it's not something the average person would know about. Reyes mused with a hopeful smile. However, Sappha pointed directly at the scattered crystals, her mouth and eyes wide in astonishment. It was as if someone had dropped a pot of treasure in their room. The only silver lining was her silence. Otherwise, others might have come rushing in. Reyes quickly collected the crystals and moved to the bed, approaching her. "Look here," Reyes whispered, his tone aggressive. "I've been really, really nice to you, far nicer than I ever imagined. So, you need to do me a favor and not tell anyone about this, okay?" Sappha immediately nodded, quite frantically at that. Ever since the incident, she found her brother's stare menacing, even though he had been a weak boy growing up. She had never seen this look on his face before. "All right," Reyes said, lifting part of the mattress and placing the crystals underneath before setting the mattress back down. "No one is to find out about these, no matter what. And if they go missing, I'll know it was you, understand?" Sappha frantically nodded her head once again. With that done, Reyes brushed off his hands and settled on the floor for a good night's rest. The only person who had discovered his crystals was a mute, his sister. So, in a way, he was lucky. But judging by Sappha's reaction, those crystals were a big deal in the world of Pagna as well. For Sappha, she turned to face the wall, pulling the blanket tight around her. She was conflicted. Sometimes he seemed distant and cruel, but there were moments she felt love radiating from him. For instance, Sappha was sleeping on the bed while Reyes rested on the floor, and his words of advice before leaving in the night left an impact. What a strange brother, Sappha thought, smiling slightly. Despite his threatening looks and harsh words, why did she feel safe around him? Waking up was a struggle for Reyes. He had spent half the night in another dimension, so he had gotten only a few hours of sleep. It was time for their chores, but Reyes was in a deep sleep. Sappha, unable to call out his name, pondered how to wake her brother up, especially since she wasn't allowed to touch him. In the end, she decided to leave him be. However, this didn't sit well with the others. A few minutes later, the door slid open. A young man in a red uniform, Sonny, entered for another visit. "So this is a lazy boy, huh? Look, Sappha, if you can't shout his name, then all you need to do is shake him a bit," Sonny suggested. As he moved forward, Safa grabbed his hand, shaking her head. What's wrong? Come on, he won't bite, Sunny reassured, gently moving his hand away and approaching Ray's. Hey, wake up, lazy head, Sunny said, touching Ray's side and giving him a shake. Instantly, Ray's eyes snapped open, and he sprung up. Don't touch me, Ray shouted loudly enough that the other kids in the neighboring rooms would have heard. Hey, take it easy, Rays. It's me, Sunny said, hands raised in a non-threatening manner. Sorry, I should have known better after what happened to you. Ray's hands were behind his back. He had gathered dark magic, ready to use it if someone got too close, but he quickly dispelled it before anyone noticed. Crap, what would have happened if I had attacked him? That would have been bad news. I'm sorry, Rays apologized, touching his head. It hasn't been long since. Sunny observed Rays. He remembered the state of him when they first found him. It was normal for someone his age to react this way, but Sunny's assumption was off. It had nothing to do with that incident. I don't know if this is a good time or not, but our clan master wants to speak to you. I think it's about your parents' death. Looking behind him, Rays glanced at the large temple situated atop a hill. He was huffing and panting as he continued his descent down the stairs. Why? Why would they build a temple on top of a hill? Rays complained aloud. Ha! Sunny awkwardly laughed. He could tell Rays was quite annoyed. He had been complaining nearly the whole way down. I'm sorry. I would have brought a carriage if it was possible, but the terrain is incredibly steep. It's actually quite common for clans to have their bases up high. It offers protection, provides a vantage point to see incoming attacks, and helps students build physical endurance as they come and go. Exactly, Rays responded. This is a temple, not a clan base. For Sunny, Rays was a peculiar sight. He had never seen someone of Ray's age struggle so much with mere steps. Though Rays wasn't a Pagna warrior, it was evident his physical condition and fitness weren't even at a basic standard. It might even be worse than a child. Currently, they were en route to the main town, where Rays had first entered this world and where the Red Brigade base was located. It was only the two of them traveling. Sunny felt there was no need to bring Safa for mere questioning, especially given her limited communication abilities. Another concern was the potential for them to be targeted again. Sunny was confident in protecting one person, but was wary about two. I wonder why they called me now. What have they discovered about the original body's killer that they need to inform me about? What do they want to ask? I've already told them I've lost most of my memories, which is true. There's still something that perplexes me about the whole situation. Why target this kid's family? Even with what I've learned, it's baffling. And that damned leader, if he had questions, he should have approached us directly. Though frustrated, Rays tried to focus on the positive. He had many queries about this world, and Sunny, with his Pagna warrior knowledge, might have the answers he sought. Eventually, they reached the end of the staircase. Though they still had to traverse a pathway through the forest to the town, Rays finally caught his breath enough to voice his questions. Portals, Rays began. I heard the other kids talking about them. Portals leading to other worlds. Is that true? Do Pagna warriors use them too? Oh, so you're starting to get interested in the Pagna warrior world, Sunny smiled. Many youngsters are, but it's a dangerous world, including the portals you mentioned. Yes, they do exist, but they lead to other dimensions filled with deadly creatures. Many have lost their lives due to these portals. If you see one appear, run and inform the nearest clan. Appear out of nowhere. Rays asked, intrigued. In Alterian, there was no such phenomenon. Portals to other realms there required magic to open. Yes, Sunny replied. It's rare, but when these portals open, they last for a specific duration. Typically, a clan will claim a portal and take responsibility for its safety, ensuring any threat emerging from it is neutralized. But, honestly, when a portal appears, it causes tension. Clans often fight over its ownership. This surprised Rays. In Alterian, portals weren't permanent. They needed to be reopened from the other side. Why the conflict over portal ownership? Wouldn't it be simpler to let another clan guard it if they offered? Rays inquired, though he suspected he knew the answer. It might seem that way, Sunny began, but it's because of the creatures within these portals. They possess crystals inside their bodies that are invaluable to Pagna warriors. They're also quite valuable for commoners, as they can be sold for a significant sum, even the most basic crystal. Now he knew the reaction from Safa was clearly warranted. How would a child get their hands on crystals if the only sources were these portals and beasts? This realization made Reyes slightly more optimistic about keeping some of the crystals. Perhaps he could sell one to acquire some money. With the money, he could purchase items and enhance them. There were items he could use to make things a tad easier. Why are the crystals so valuable? Reyes inquired. As I mentioned earlier, they're actually valuable only to Pagna warriors. Commoners and the Empire don't value them. That's because the crystals can be transformed into chi pills to aid in one's cultivation, Sonny explained. The higher grade the crystal, the stronger the chi pill that can be produced. It's a useful tool for rapid growth, and the high-grade pills can help break through bottlenecks as well. Hence, it's primarily valuable to Pagna warriors. However, merchants, lords, and the military purchase the pills since they hold immense value to Pagna warriors. They sometimes use these pills as a form of payment. At the same time, this system ensures that others don't fret over the beasts emerging from the portals as the clans handle them. So, they only produce chi pills? They don't craft weapons or other items with them? Reyes pressed. No, just chi pills. Reyes contemplated. The application of crystals in this world was significantly different than on Altarian. However, they lacked magic here. He speculated if he utilized crystals to enhance items or crafted elixirs and potions, commodities unknown in this realm, he could become a prosperous merchant. Furthermore, since he'd be the sole producer, he could reserve the premium products for himself. Does the Red Brigade clan own a portal? Reyes queried. Sonny chuckled heartily. No, we're too small a clan to possess something of that magnitude. However, the Pagna Academy does access several portals for training their students. Reyes had hoped to perhaps utilize the Red Brigade clan's portal, but that idea was now moot. As they entered the town, the atmosphere was familiar. Wide streets bustled with folks hauling carts, purchasing goods from market stalls, and engaging in spirited conversations. There were several prominent inns and restaurants. As they ambulated through the streets, Reyes tried spotting any vendors selling these crystals, but to no avail. They must be rare, but that also means selling them might be challenging, he pondered. They were still some distance away from the clan building when another question popped into Reyes' mind. There's another topic the kids discussed. Reyes began. Do you know someone named Beatrix Highborn? Immediately, Sonny halted, turning to Reyes with raised eyebrows. It wasn't just Sonny. Everyone around them, having overheard the name, stopped to stare at Reyes.